Versus the World Productions. What has been heard cannot be unheard. www.vtwproductions.com.
What is the matter with you? Hi, girls! This is no joke. Tough love, baby. Keep it together! Oh, no. This is bad. My whole life depends on it!
Calm down, princess. You're listening to...
No excuses!
your video game news from around the world with Ari, Vol, and Fern.
It's the perfect plan! Huzzah!
How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on VTWProductions.com with your favorite show hosts, Ara Still,
Venurian,
and Volatile, and we're here to bring you the latest news and current events and commentary and etc. and tangents, presumably, on the games industry for the week. Unfortunately, we are not live again today because we are having trouble with the broadcaster. That is to say, our license is expired and Doc is nowhere to be found, as usual. But
gotta love those date mismatches.
But we will mush on and get this up on the archive and available for you on. We put them on iTunes, right?
Yes.
On iTunes as soon as possible, so that it won't be too far behind. So if you would like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or by following us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or by joining us on Discord by going to any of our show posts and getting the link there. Although you came up with another method, didn't you? You click on something.
Yes, you click on the No Excuses icon on the show posts.
Right. And that should link you to our Discord, where we basically shoot the breeze. Post whatever you like, talk about whatever you like. Just keep it clean is all.
Reasonably clean.
Yep. We're always happy to chat with whoever shows up there. There are a few people around, not too many, but it would be nice to be able to expand the population of people discussing things there. Discord is an incredible service, so I think people should make the most of it.
It is. It's actually really impressive. It's better than Skype. Well, it's better than Skype. That's not hard. It's better than things like Ventrilo and TeamSpeak, and it's free. So what can you argue about?
It's like just this random program put together by a bunch of meme lords.
Basically, yes.
And it's better than all of the commercial offerings.
Oh, dear.
Yep.
So, let us dive directly into it, shall we?
Fern, your week, go.
My week has been a very, very, very strange one, but that's nothing unusual around here. So for video games, I'll start with video games. Keeping on plinking away at Horizon Zero Dawn and approaching the end of the story now. There's a few big twists in the road as you go along, but nothing overly surprising. Like there's a big twist about the nature of the apocalypse that once you're getting close to the reveal, you can pretty much see what shape it is. It's not exactly groundbreaking story writing, but it's solid. It's still solid and very enjoyable. Gameplay-wise, I think I've got this game completely figured out now. So, for the most part, you're playing basically giant robot dinosaur Far Cry. You got your big
that's what the game looks like.
Yeah, it does. It looks like giant robot Far Cry, sneaking around and climbing up the radio towers. Granted, this time the radio towers actually move about, but basically that. But every now and again, like I said last week, it'll take away all your sneaky and your various other bits and pieces that you can do and throw you in an arena head-to-head with a robot of some description. I've figured out what the game wants me to do. It wants me to play Monster Hunter at that point.
Well, there's not really many options at that point other than to play Monster Hunter.
Yeah, the first few times I kept trying to play it like Far Cry or something like that, and no, it doesn't work. You can't hide in a corner and plink away or throw a cat or something at it. No, you play Monster Hunter, so you must learn to master the dodge roll and time your attacks. And
yeah, well, I mean, my instinct looking at footage was to play it like Terra.
No, I don't think there's any place for horrible perversions in this. I need an
No,
adult.
most people on the internet can find some space somewhere.
Rule 34?
There are things that I prefer not to think about, and Rule 34 is one of them.
Yes, it is. It is also one of the universal constants. Stupid internet. So, yeah, thoroughly enjoying that. There's a lot of characters in it which are, well, there's a lot of them which are actually just kind of rather plain, but there's a bit of political intrigue. There's a psychotic cult running around who seem to take cues from the Mayans and the Aztecs, basically meaning the higher up your ranks you go, the bigger and more elaborate your hat becomes.
Well, isn't that just a universal trait of humanity, though?
If you're evil and you're high ranking in an evil organization or society, you must have an enormous and elaborate hat. This is a rule.
I don't even know if you need to be evil. Like,
Evil is preferred. Good guys tend to prefer more practical hats.
well, you say that, but like, then there's like Carmen Miranda.
You have a point.
I mean, that's a big hat. Maybe it's made of fruit, but it's still a big hat.
True, but on the other hand, if we're going that way, Carmen Sandiego, also a big hat.
Well, I don't know if she's evil. She's nefarious, sort of, but not really evil.
Not really evil, more mischievous. Her hat isn't excessively enormous and elaborate. It's just big and red. And oddly practical in most cases. Anyway, that's a weird tangent. So yeah, I'll probably finish up the story on that game, maybe even tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it's very enjoyable. And there's a lot of stuff, as it is with these sort of Far Cry-like games, a lot of stuff tucked away that you can go and find. Like, you need to go out and collect your mug collection because there's prizes if you do.
Hold on, mugs?
Mugs. They're called ancient vessels, and they're a mysterious object left behind by the ancient ones with strange designs on them. They're mugs. That's what they are. They are mugs. I call them mugs because they are mugs. So, random collectibles around the place, and there's all these different lore snippets around, so you can see kind of what life was like leading up to the apocalypse and all that sort of good stuff. And failing that, there's also giant robot dinosaurs to kill, and that never gets old.
And collectible mugs.
Unfortunately, because I've actually went through it, I've unlocked the ability to override most robot dinosaurs now. You're not allowed to ride the giant T-Rex, and I think this is a missed opportunity. A horribly missed opportunity.
I don't understand why you would make a game with giant rideable robot dinosaurs in it and then not let you ride the T-Rex. Like, what does that board meeting sound like? Like, we want to decide whether or not we're going to let them ride the T-Rex. Surely everybody in the room just looks at that guy and says, is that actually a question? Is that actually something you're suggesting? That we don't let them ride the T-Rex?
It's like the question of, would a jetpack improve this situation? The answer, of course, is yes. But
I mean, what if it's Hitler? Like, Jetpack Hitler's bad.
But fighting Jetpack Hitler with a jetpack of your own would be awesome. See?
I suppose. But that's adding 2 jetpacks rather than 1.
And still jetpacks. Jetpacks improve everything.
So if jetpacks fail to improve things, you just need to keep adding them until they improve things.
That's right. You just add more jetpacks. It's awesome. It's an infallible scheme here. But I can see why they didn't make the giant T-Rex rideable, but I'm still disappointed. Like, the thing is, it's a walking death machine. It's got rockets.
I'm still not seeing the reason why.
Yeah, like, give it. I don't know. Maybe they've got a rideable one for the final boss fight or something like that. Because apparently the way it's shaping up is you're going to have to fight some sort of giant flying robot factory thing in some form or another. Knowing the way the game's going, you're probably going to have to fight it from the inside out, but that's not fun. I want a giant robot dinosaur with lasers and rocket launchers and the whole bit.
It seems extremely strange to me that they wouldn't let you ride the T-Rex.
Yeah.
That's... What?
The ultimate skeptic in me is saying they're saving it for DLC.
Oh, that would be really cynical.
Yes. Good thing we're not known for that.
No, not at all. No.
No.
Everything's terrible forever, Fern. You gotta pay to ride T-Rex.
That is the good game I played this week. One of the good games. The other good game I will talk about probably next week. The bad game is I tried to continue playing No Man's Sky.
Why? You know that it's bad.
I know it's bad. I think at this point, it's because I don't want it to defeat me.
I think it's because of Stockholm Syndrome.
It might be that. I haven't actually played it since in the last few days. I bought it out of a bargain bin.
You went in with your eyes open.
Yes, I did. Those eyes are now severely crossed. Ugh. It's just, ugh. I can see what they were trying to do, but honestly, I've said it before. Now that I've actually played it, I can say it with a lot more confidence. This game needed to be left on the workbench for at least another 12 months. At least.
Well, it might have been 12 months normal developer time, and indie developer time, that's like 24 months at least.
At least. But they got the big corporate money behind them, and they had to meet a deadline, and that deadline is rather showing, and it's a practice that annoys me no end when you have something with really big ideas and a lot of promise that would work, but instead it's stuck to a deadline and pushed out the door way before it's ready.
Well, I mean, it's very easy to say, rah, corporate deadline, rah. But the fact is that they didn't have to take it. They knew what they were getting in. They knew what they were getting into.
Yes.
They decided, well, no, we would rather have this guaranteed meal ticket than than avoid executive meddling.
Yes.
They chose their poison.
They did. So
even then, throughout development, they didn't show us any kind of progress as the game was being made. It was looking worse and worse as the release date approached.
So yeah, No Man's Sky, it's just bad. They've patched a lot of things, they've improved things here and there, but just the core ideas are flat and boring, and a lot of the things are just executed badly. And once you've seen one or two planets, you've pretty much seen them all. So yeah,
Harmonica
Brachiosaur is incredible. Ugh. So I'm going to try and, at least make one playthrough to the center of the galaxy before I, snap it in half and throw it out the window or something. But
don't do it. Don't do it. Don't kill yourself.
That's okay. I have good games sitting there waiting for me. I've got some Bloodborne in which I can...
But you could be playing those games now, Fern.
I cannot, because I'm actually doing the show right now. Bloodborne and the show would not work very well.
But you could be playing those games in the time you would be playing No Man's Sky, Fern. You are delaying good to hurt yourself before you play the good stuff.
Well, that's the way my No Man's Sky experience has been lately. It's sit down and play it for half an hour, and because I'm sick of this, and play something good.
It's like I don't know why you're putting yourself through that. Like, I mean, surely there are more entertaining, less painful things to do. Like, I don't know, having your testicles waxed. Like, practically anything would be better.
Fern, like if you're going to watch an anime a terrible anime of a good visual novel, at least you're trying to convince yourself of something because you have reason to believe it should be good. You have no reason to believe that No Man's Sky is going to be good.
No,
you're just hurting yourself.
I know it's pretty much bad all the way through. I just want to plumb the depths and see exactly how bad and where they've gone off the rails, I guess. I don't know, it's kind of like watching a bad anime. It just can't look away, no matter how much it hurts.
Fascination is all flying around and doing nothing.
Yeah, there's a difference. Like I watched all the way through Handshakers last season, right? But that was because Handshakers was staggeringly bad and found new and bizarre ways to be bad each week. It wasn't boring in the conventional sense, because my jaw would still drop. It would just be for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. The problem I think actually is because I'm playing it through on the new survival mode is the game goes from annoyingly boring to annoyingly unfair. So you get off a planet, you fly into space, and you're in your little putt-putt first spaceship, which is, let's face it, crap. But you go out and immediately you're beset upon by let's say there's incoming enemies, and that's all right. Your little putt-putt ship can take out 1, maybe 2 enemies. No, it spawns 6. You're back down on that planet and dead. Enjoy.
It's just a game made by bad developers. That's what it comes down to. Anybody can have a good idea. They get hit by a bolt of inspiration. That doesn't mean that they can make a good product from that idea. And honestly, like the reaction to most people who weren't, gullible and over optimistic was that No Man's Sky was never going to be a good game, much in the way so many people just presumed out of hand that Star Citizen wouldn't be a good game. Star Citizen has surpassed people's wildest expectations in that it is not actually a bad game, and it's just a non-existent one. But the No Man's Sky was an impossible proposition from the start. Like if you watched that the initial sort of pitch that they gave. Like Peter Molyneux was convincing, but the lies
not
were
anymore.
of the same magnitude, and that guy was not convincing.
Yeah.
So,
To be fair, Peter Molyneux, as he is now, is not convincing no matter what he says.
but that's
anymore.
because we know
He-
about Peter Molyneux now.
He owes some
Yes.
trees that grow in real time on the original Xbox.
Like it is very clear that if nothing else, Ari believed Peter Molyneux. Once
Where's my
upon a
Black
time.
and White 3, Peter Molyneux?
How long ago was it when I believed Peter Molyneux? Over a decade and a half ago now? It's been a long time since Peter Molyneux's been believable.
And it's been even longer since he's released something good.
But it's not because he lacks the ability to communicate excitement. Like he can tell you a lie and you believe it because you want to believe it. The No Man's Sky guy was not convincing. He just listed a whole mountain of features that couldn't possibly be put into one game, much less by an indie dev. Like it only came into plausibility when they got the big money, and even there, it still wasn't plausible to be done within the development window.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah, that's
He
right.
was so awkward on stage every time he got on. I'm so glad that game's done with being
everything
in depth.
to his feet is what he did.
He looks so timid and scared whenever he got on stage to announce anything
Completely out of
about the
place.
game.
I feel
felt
sorry
so
for
bad
him,
for him.
actually. Public speaking is not for everyone, and frankly, I hate doing it in person.
I think that he was probably modestly leery of doing the public speaking, but he agreed to do it anyway, so he wasn't that scared of it. I think that his actual concern was that he would be accountable for everything that he said there.
Yeah,
And he wasn't sure what that would look like in the long term. I think that was the real problem. Like, yeah, he wasn't great on camera. He wasn't a great public speaker. He wasn't compelling or charismatic, but he was also accountable for everything that he said, and there was no getting away from it ever. I think that that's where the bulk of the nerves are coming from, particularly in his later appearances.
yeah. All right, so getting away from terribleness, let's go on to something good, shall we? So I sat down and I watched the latest episode of My Hero Academia and had the itching for a bit more schlocky shonen fun. So I fired up Fairy Tail, and then I remembered, hold on, I'm up to the Tartarus arc.
Things just start to go really badly in general.
Everything
terms.
goes horribly, horribly wrong in the Tartarus arc. It is not schlocky, it is not fun, and it is certainly not happy. Characters kind of pick up mental scars all over the place. Horrible stuff happens to just about everyone. Granted, a lot of characters get a good power up along the way. Gray in particular, spoilers. Natsu doesn't. Lucy kinda does.
Lucy's power level is all over the place. Like I can't get a handle on how powerful the story thinks that she is, much less how powerful I'm supposed to think she is. Because she seems to be able to pull off incredible things on occasion and just be useless the rest of the time.
Sometimes, yes. Well, this time she picks up a new ability which is world-shatteringly powerful, but she takes a power hit and quite a few emotional scars in the process. So,
well, I mean, it was a moving scene in its own way.
It was a very important and very, very well done scene. So, it wasn't the happy, schlocky shonen that I was hoping or really wanting, but is something I'm very, very glad I watched. It is,
Need to get around to that one at some point. I watched up to, like, there was a lady with a scythe on a train track, and that's about where I stopped.
That's like the very first arc when they go on their first major mission.
Yeah, it is too.
It was like episode 25 or 30 when I stopped Fairy Tail.
It's a shonen. It moves very slowly.
It does. It really does. But you haven't even met maybe a third of the cast at that point.
I just wasn't in the mood for shonen, so I put it down. And getting back into a shonen after that long, have to restart it to get picked back up to where I was. I'm like, that's a long trek.
Yeah. That being said, So My Hero Academia is also kind of bouncing back and forth between wacky silliness and seriously dark stuff for its current season.
I want to read the manga of that. I don't really want to wait around for the anime because it's a shonen like that.
The anime is really good, though. It's really well put together. The directing, the pacing, it's all very good. Both on an individual episode basis and on an arc basis.
Yes.
Well, I make that judgment based on what I saw of the anime. It was really, really good. And the art in the manga looks really good too, but I just don't want to wait around for shonen timing. So I know if I get into it, I'll eventually just wind up reading the manga.
The manga crawls as well.
It does. So
at least we'll get somewhere.
That's that. I don't know. Next week, I've got to pick a new anime to watch because My Hero Academia is plobbing along at, episodic at the moment. So it's one episode a week. Fairy Tail, once it gets out of the Tartarus arc, becomes Fairy Tail Zero, which is all about the founding of the guild. And that's boring. Don't really care. We don't want to get invested in a whole new set of characters.
Well, the thing is that a lot of that stuff comes back, like they're in the final arc, like they're in the run up to the end of the story, the whole story in the manga, and it basically all boils down to old characters from like the around the time of the founding of Fairy Tail, like they become sort of the focus. Like they're not around. It's mainly Mavis and Zeref. But they are the most important characters because the entire plot turns on them. Well, them and Acnologia. Yeah.
So one thing that kind of really frustrates me about that is the absolute last second of the Tartarus arc. After the final episode of the epilogue and the credits have rolled, there's a very short scene which says, "Oh, by the way, here's the true identity of END. And now we're going to throw you back into the past. Enjoy!"
They do the exact same thing in the manga too.
Yeah, because why? Like, it's a big world-changing reveal. By the way, do not watch the death battle between Natsu and Ace because it spoils it.
They never delineate exactly what that means though. Like they do a really poor job of explaining just how the grimoires work and what they really are, because to simply call them creations is sort of, it doesn't seem to tell the whole story.
Yeah,
because it's like you can't. There's no sort of mage singularity that would ever allow Zeref to create something more powerful than himself. So the fact that he's even bothering to try just seems really stupid.
Yeah, like there's a logic behind it, but it still seems rather stupid.
Oh god, more grimoire terminology.
Yeah,
with anime and so many different grimoire types. Like we have the Blaze Blue types, we have the Soul Eater types, and now we have the Fairy Tail types. I'm gonna get them all confused, and there's more than that. I can't think of off the top of my head, but I've heard that term used too much in anime recently.
It basically means evil book. That's how it's used for the most part.
Well, in Blaze Blue, it doesn't have to be a book.
No, it doesn't. It can be an arm.
It can be a fish.
It can be a fish.
It can be a lot of things.
It can be just about anything.
The Read Hard manga has a lot of very strange grimoires.
Yeah, but Fairy Tail, they're a book, but they're also a demon, but they're not exactly the same thing, but they're also, I don't know, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's never properly explained. So, I don't know, I might sit down, if I'm looking for something silly and fun, I might sit down and watch the Monster Hunter anime. I've watched a bit of it.
That's a better bet for lightheartedness, but not a sure one.
Yeah, because it goes a bit dark. Like, there's creatures in Monster Hunter which, through either design or happy accident or a bit of both, are seriously creepy. Like the Kazu.
Ugh.
Yeah, see?
You
know what the Kazu is now?
Some type of intestinal parasite given wings. Like it's
horrible. Oh, not quite. The Giganox is worse, by the way. It's like that with no bones.
Ugh.
Yeah. Also egg sacs. Lots of egg sacs.
This sounds really, really gross. How about we don't go there?
Let's not. But, like, Monster Hunter, for the most part, is very light and very fun and colourful and silly. Even when it's trying to be dramatic, at least in the games, it's still not. It's still rather silly. Because more often than not, you've got a feline in the background belaying you with a constant stream of cat puns. Speaking of which, I shall say it again, Navarro is an abomination. That is all. I know he makes sense now. The fact that he's not, he's still an abomination.
Like, I mean, I think that, like, while there are others like him in the story, none of them are quite as him.
Yeah.
He's special.
Spoilers, he's half giant lightning dog. Enjoy. It doesn't explain his crappy attitude and his general uselessness, though.
No, the most inexplicable part is that his friends actually like him. Like,
also
I don't get it.
They don't. I've seen it, at least in the early episodes. They don't. They seem to like him most of the time, and other times put up with him.
I'm talking about his feline friends, because he's an amnesiac character, right? But he's got other friends in his past. But they're all really fond of him for reasons. I don't know why. Because he's just a douche.
He is an enormous twit. So I'm actually glad they throw another feline character at you fairly early on, because that way you don't think that Navarro is just a design choice and that all the felines look like that.
Oh
They
no,
don't.
no, yeah, there's an episode which takes place in a feline village, and the other felines are like, there is no way you're an actual feline.
Yeah. The cat puns, the amount of cat puns that occur in feline villages. Anywho, Vol, your week, sir.
My week has been torturous because I'm still suspended in a state of I can't do anything. And my as of the time of recording, my report on my thesis is embargoed because there's a maximum amount of time that you are allowed access to it prior to the oral examination itself. So I have been unable to do anything because I need that information to prepare my prepare for my oral examination, which will be the final exam of my PhD, and will decide, whether I get it or not. So I'm just sort of sitting in a state of perpetual angst, waiting for access to it. And I'm scared to read it. Like the fact that they're going ahead with the oral examination means that it's not actually catastrophic, but I always hate reading feedback on my work.
Who doesn't? That annoys me no end. But yeah, this has got to be absolute torture for you, because this is years of your life, and that comes down to this one oral examination.
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's because the report is there. It's in the office of the guy who's chairing the exam. I just can't see it. I'm not allowed to see it.
Yes, you only have, 10 days to prepare?
Yeah, it's being dangled out of my reach. It's really winding me up. But there's nothing I can do about that. I'll get access to it.
Just crap.
I'll get access to it on Monday, in theory.
Which means it'll be next Wednesday you have your test?
Yeah, something like that. The last day of the month. And I'm pretty terrified of that, but not because it's apparently really, really unusual that anybody fails it, because you're not really supposed to be allowed to get to the point of failing it. Like if a person actually fails their oral exam, it's usually an indicator that their supervisor was seriously, fundamentally derelict of duty. The problem is it might not have been so.
That's worrying. I've heard your rants about your supervisor in the past, and it is a distinct possibility.
Yeah. But I don't know. There's nothing to be done about it now. I just have to push forward, and I don't like thinking about it. I'm very
like the RL title, dog.
But yeah, so things should be fine. Like I'm reasonably confident that they're fine. My supervisor was not so terrible as to let me submit something that would be failed outright. So like I wish like the real problem is that I only had one of my two supervisors bothered to do anything, and the other one was basically AWOL and refused to cooperate. I don't even know why he bothered to sign on. He wouldn't even proofread my work. Yeah. That's that's in the past now. I just have to mush on with what I've got.
You got this, bro.
During the week, what did I do during the week? We'll start off with today, with this weekend's raids. We had a shortage of people again on yesterday for raids, so we could only do heroic, and that's really starting to wind the leadership up, because we had a surplus very, very recently, and suddenly we don't have a surplus anymore.
Is it just or is it just doldrums setting in, or is it something else?
I think to a great extent it's that. It's well, our inability to build up a bench and to maintain high numbers is partly to do with doldrums and partly to do with just the way Blizzard has put this whole thing together. Like you need to be a top end clearing guild in order to maintain a bench, because you won't have excess people willing to join your guild and not get to raid every week unless you're top end. Like it's just not going to happen. Nobody will indulge in that. Nobody will indulge you. But in order to become a top end guild, you need to have a bench so that you can reliably raid. So it's sort of a catch-22, and there's not much you can do about that. You've got to thread the needle of having, just 20 people who show up all the time. You can't really sustain very many extras because people get tired of it and go and find a guild where they can raid every week.
Yeah.
But the thing is that's been exacerbated simply by the sheer amount of time and effort that's required to maintain a character this time round.
Yes. If you slack off, you fall behind.
And it doesn't help that they've taken this policy of just massive sledgehammer nerfs and buffs and adjustments just constantly this expansion. Like nobody can settle into their class because they keep changing. Like we're coming into the third tier and we've got people re-rolling again because their class is being destroyed and all the effort that they've put into building up their artifact weapon has been thrown down the toilet.
But class fantasy, yo.
It's not even about class fantasy so much as the grand vision that individual devs have for the class. They aren't really concerned about what anybody else thinks from what I can see. It's really quite frustrating. But yeah, we've got people who are re-rolling this late in the piece. Not because they are tired of playing the class that they were playing before, but because they can't perform the way they expect to anymore because adjustments have been made that they didn't expect. But of course, we're doing everything against the sort of assumptions based on what is being tested because, well, we don't have the final version of the next patch yet, of course. But as such, we've got people furiously gearing characters that they may or may not use, but are sort of obliged to due to the very swingy nature of the adjustments being made this expansion. Because it's not like previous expansions where, in a previous expansion you would see small percentage adjustments in class power as opposed to entire mechanics getting revamped mid-expansion. Like that, it's very burdensome to anybody involved. And like as I've ranted many times before, Brewmaster is one of the specs that has been heavily subject to this. And we've got things like the mages. Fire was more powerful by far than the other specs in the first tier. And then in the second tier, it was Gutless, and Frost was the most powerful. But nobody had their Frost spec artifact upgraded because Frost was rubbish before then. And now Fire was rubbish. So everybody who was playing a mage basically ended up having their weapon reset because they had to start over. And it's not exactly something people are particularly amused by, let's just say. And there was people were suspecting for quite a while that was going to happen again because they were nerfing Frost because Frost was so powerful, but they weren't really buffing Fire. So it wasn't going to go back to Fire. Everybody's going to end up being Arcane. So,
right.
But the thing is that they've included this new thing in the coming patch where every class is getting a class legendary ring.
I'm just looking at those now. So they're coming back.
What is suspected by a lot of people, there's nothing supporting it per se other than, well, it seems to make sense to do it this way. But a lot of people are suspecting that the case is that that will be exempt from the 2 legendary limit and it will be gotten as a reward for completing the class hall campaign.
Okay.
So everybody will have one, and so they'll actually be able to balance around what people have. Whereas, historically, the reason why they've had these massive swingy nerfs and buffs all the time is because artifact weapons level and the particular legendaries that you happened to get have a massive effect on your power.
Yes. And
balancing around that is basically impossible. And so they keep screwing it up, and they end up with all of these swinging moves to power and so on. But if they introduce this, this is a change that they can make that can fix problems while assuming that everybody will have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've seen some situations in which this will definitely fix things. Like Blood Death Knights, for instance, are hopeless this expansion. And they're hopeless because they get one shot. Everything that they have is reactive. You use it after you get hurt. So that means when a really, really big spike comes in, you just die because you're not going to live long enough to react to it. Now, the way that this looks like it is going to be fixed is that the ring offers you the ability to always have active a talent, because all of the rings give you a talent for each spec, depending on what your spec is set to. They give you a talent that is mandatory for every Blood Death Knight. But the fact that that talent is mandatory in order to make Blood Death Knights functional is what prevents you taking the only talent that can prevent you getting spiked to death.
Mm-hmm.
So if everybody has access to this ring, that means that everybody will have the opportunity to take the thing which prevents you getting spiked to death. So you can, render the class functional where it wasn't before.
Yeah.
Be able to do the fights. Now, the fact is that this is an incredibly roundabout way of doing it, and it seems very strange that they're doing it in such a roundabout way. And there are two main possibilities behind this. Firstly, that they're not really comfortable making large changes for some reason, despite the fact that they've made large changes in the past. They don't want to revamp the talents for the class because reasons. And the other reason is that they're too proud to admit that they've made a mistake, and they're so acting like this is some great bonus instead of something that's correcting a major flaw in the spec.
Blah.
Which honestly sounds more like their character as of late. But but yeah, it's either way it will lift that spec out of unusability and into usability. But they're all over the map, really. I think the most powerful one for tanks is probably the Paladin one, because it gives you Holy Shield, and Holy Shield is like the single most powerful straight up throughout the duration of a fight mitigation ability on their talent trees, and it's on the same tier as the most powerful one, which is what prevents people taking it. So it's just going to make their durability as a tank shoot through the roof. And I don't know if if they're giving that to everybody, I don't know if they've really done the calculations on what that means, because it means that Paladins are going to be insanely tough.
Probably not.
For Brewmasters, it gives you Mystic Vitality, which is not anywhere near as splashy, because Mystic Vitality is a mandatory talent that every Brewmaster takes nearly all the time. And having that on an item basically means that you can pick one of the other two, which are not nearly as important as Mystic Vitality, but it will allow you to pick either Healing Elixirs or Dampen Harm. So Healing Elixirs just gives you self-healing as an option. It's not especially powerful, particularly in a raid context, but it's something. And Dampen Harm would allow us to actually take a mitigation cooldown, which is something that our kit is sorely, sorely lacking. It's very hard to use Zen Meditation, which is the only thing we've got other than the barely functional Fortifying Brew. So it's a help in that sense, but it doesn't really change the paradigm of the class. Like, it doesn't give us a huge durability buff the way it does for Paladins, or enable new class functionality the way it does for Death Knights. So yeah, I haven't looked at all of the rings because I don't know all of the talent trees for all of the classes, but generally speaking, they could make a real mess with these things. In as much as they can fix classes, they can also cause a whole lot of damage. And it's sort of that they're either going to have to work on the presumption that everybody has these or that nobody has them. So if they work on the presumption that everybody has them, maybe they can balance around them, but that means that they have to give it to everybody because they're legendaries. And under the normal legendary system, you can't ever make that assumption, which is what where the basis for the class assumption comes from. And they have the item names are very similar to the titles that you get for completing the first leg of your Orderhall campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a thing. The other thing is, and this sort of, I was in two minds about this, because on one hand it's sort of interesting and on the other hand it's sort of worrying, is that everybody is raving about exactly one thing in the new patch that's coming out, and that is the successor to Withered Army Training, my least favorite thing in the world.
Yay.
Now, the successor to Withered Army Training, though, is it's another scenario. It's another sort of like standalone adventure-y scenario thing, but it's about Chromie. And
yes,
the way that it works is it's a story that you've got to unfold. And I haven't done it myself because I don't really play PTR, but the gist of it is that Chromie is getting killed, and she wants you to work out why she gets killed and stop it. So you've got to work out how to intervene in this situation, and basically you've got 15 minutes to prevent her dying, and every time you do the scenario, you can get a little bit further because you will have done it before. Now, I don't know what the limitation is going to be on entering the scenario. They could make it really punitive, and then everybody will hate it, which is the most likely thing since Blizzard is stupid.
Yeah.
But the laying aside the entry requirements, like the first thing that is apparent to you from what I've heard is that there is the source of the thing that kills her comes from each of the dragon shrines in Dragonblight. So your first thing will be to go and visit a dragon shrine and try and work out what the problem is there and why, the spell comes from there or whatever to kill Chromie. And that will take most of your first 15 minutes. But once you've done it the one time and Chromie dies because you've only had time to solve one of the puzzles, the second time you already know the answer. So when you rewind time and have another go, you'll be able to solve that one quickly and move on to the next one. Or maybe you'll want to do them all separately and then do all of the puzzles separately and then do one run where you execute them all quickly. Or however you choose to do it. Then there's another follow-up thing where you've got to go to various places that the Bronze Dragonflight have been involved in and solve puzzles there. And there are various things that you'll find out, like you'll get, say, a mini quest to go and get some item from some vendor and deliver it to some person as part of solving the problem. And having done that, you will have spent a bunch of time, but the next time you go through that, you will be able to optimize your run so oh, well, there's that vendor. I'm going to get requested something from that person later. I'll pick it up while I'm here and then move on to doing the next thing. And there's a lot of optimization to go on about, oh, well, I will pull this pack and this pack. I will tank them here and kill them here and do these in various ways. And so the whole thing ends up being you solve each of these things and you optimize your route until you can solve the entire thing in one go and keep Chromie alive.
It actually sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, it sounds kind of interesting to a lot of people. It sounds really engaging and much, much better. It's almost a fully fledged mini game. Within a game that has gotten a lot of people very intrigued, and is certainly vastly better than Wizard Army Training, which makes me want to bash my head against the wall. The thing that worries me, though, is that this is the only thing people are excited about.
Yeah, there's a bunch of new legendaries. There's apparently some sort of heavy metal band or something going on here, according to these items.
More to the point, there's an entire raid dungeon.
Yes, also
and
that.
People are only concerned about the Chromie quest, which makes me really worried.
Temporal hero training, it's a thing. People like it. I'll throw in the obligatory. I'm so glad I'm not playing this game right now, like I do every week.
Noted.
I mean, make no mistake, it sounds like a really cool and interesting scenario, provided they execute it right and don't give it punitive terms of entry. But I'm really concerned by the fact that people are far more excited for this than any of the, World of Warcraft content.
Yeah.
The way they blocked out Mythic so hard, I mean, people aren't that excited for raids, I would imagine. Not like they used to be, given how hard people are having trouble getting into Mythic with. That sentence made no sense. Let me try English again. Given how hard it is to get into Mythic.
There you
go. I'm really frustrated with Mythic, and I think that Blizzard needs to stop being so pedantic about Mythic, because in Nighthold they overtuned it to a spectacular degree. It's not even fair. Like the amount of fussing about that you originally needed to. Now they've nerfed a lot of the fights now. Like the one we're on to is this week, and on Sunday I diverged from my topic when I was talking about the rating this week. On Sunday today, we pulled together a bunch of extras from someone in our guild knew some people who they could bring along, and we managed to bring down Tichondrius on Mythic for the first time, which was satisfying. Tichondrius is relatively easy by my estimation, in the sense that I don't think that he's actually any harder on Mythic per se. It's just that there are more steps and complicated steps, but most of what can go wrong is recoverable. It's not like Crozus, where if you make one tiny mistake, the raid wipes. Like I wiped the raid on Crozus today because I was too slow getting back to my spot, and if I'm too slow getting back to my spot, the entire raid dies. Like that's how it's structured. Everything that goes wrong has the result of the entire raid dies. You can't work around it. And there are a lot of bosses like that in Nighthold, which is why the tuning is so tight. And they say, oh, well, the reason we need the tuning, the reason we need 20 people in Mythic is because the tuning has to be really tight to enable this sort of difficulty. But nobody actually likes that type of difficulty where, oh, well, everybody has to do the dance steps perfectly or everybody dies instantaneously in an unrecoverable way. That's not actually fun. So
Yeah.
I think, honestly, like, sure, I understand that there are real tuning requirements, and if heroic flex was serious business, then then there would be breakpoints between 10 people and 30 people where it's going to be really problematic that you're going to have particular numbers of people will arrive that will cause things to happen at particular frequencies in particular ways, whereby you're going to have optimal strategies emerge for particular numbers of characters. Like, that's the thing that they're afraid of. I understand that is a concern. I don't see any reason why this means you need 20 people in Mythic. I don't see any reason why they can't tune it for 15 to 25 instead of 10 to 30 for Heroic. Because the reality was we had 18 or 19 people yesterday, and we couldn't do any progress because we had 18 or 19 people, because we had like one person away and another person had to go and do a band thing. We had one person late because they were ill or something like that. These are just obstructions which don't need to be there, and it's because they're obsessed with this tuning thing. If they can tune it for 20 and get it so wrong the way they did, then I don't think that there's really any basis to them to acting like they're like precision tuners or anything like that. Like, there's no reason they can't tune it for, even if they tuned it for like 17 to 23, like it works really well in that narrow bracket. That there might be room for breakpoints, but the fact is that we would take a slightly harder fight falling short of a breakpoint to run with 19 on a day where somebody doesn't show up, rather than have an optimal number of 20, so long as we knew that the fight was still doable, that we weren't going to fall dramatically short, which is what would happen if you run with 19 without overgearing the content. Although, like, we killed Scorpor on Mythic with 19 today because somebody was late, and that was no problem. But that's simply because we overgear it, and because the first 3 bosses are ridiculously weak compared to everything else in that dungeon. But yeah, they've just made Mythic as much of a burden as possible to even get into. I think that, coupled with the fact that when confronted with the class challenges, so to speak, which are not really class challenges in the Mage Tower, being basically unable to be done by most people in the player base, like, I think it's something like, for a lot of specs, I think there's something like 0.4% of people have managed to do them.
That's not good. That's not good.
That's for like the ones where lots of people have managed to do them. Like, it's a really small number. I actually have to check the numbers. They're written down somewhere. But there's a really small proportion of people have actually managed to do those challenges, and they're meant to be hard. I understand that, but there's so little genuine content got released in 7.2.5. No, 7.2.0. Yeah, 7.2.0. So little content got released that when they were presented with like the big gameplay content of which the thing that wasn't World Quest grinding, of doing the Mage Tower stuff, and then finding out that, for everybody but the very best at the game, it's basically impossible at this stage for a lot of specs. Like, that's incredibly disappointing. And I think that people have become overly attached to this Chromie scenario because, oh my goodness, it's finally content that I can actually do, and it's not grinding World Quests.
Yes, you need to use your brain and not numbers.
Because while
horribly overtuned.
The thing is, while the Chromie scenario is tuned so that skill pays off heavily, because if you're geared well and you do your positioning and skill execution well, you're going to be able to push through the scenario quicker. There's a sort of a fail-safe mechanic where it sounds like the more you do the scenario, the more rep you build up with Chromie. And as you build up rep with Chromie, you can give Chromie talents at the start of the mission based on how much rep you've got. So, and apparently some of the later talents are like spectacularly powerful, like you do 50% more damage or something like that.
That's good.
but that's like way down the line. So if you've just been failing miserably over and over again, eventually you'll just build up rep, and you'll be able to make Chromia a combat monster and give yourself a bunch of buffs. So
You
even
basically
if
stop her own death at that point.
even if it's super overtuned, you'll still be able to eventually get through it simply by investing time in it. So, well, that's the theory anyway. From what I understand, it's a little bit confusing to me still in some ways, but yeah, that's the matter with that. What else? Is there anything else in that patch that I've heard about lately that's particularly caught my attention? I don't really think there is. The singularly destroyed assassination rogues. It sounds like we've got a whole bunch of people turning pirate now. Because the thing is that outlaw spec or pirates have been so terrible that nobody's got any artifact power in their weapon. So
Yeah. I like the theme, but from what I can tell and what people have been saying, it's just executed terribly.
It's inconsistent as all get out when it first came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it hasn't been made substantially better. It doesn't sound like it has anyway. I'm not sure about that. I just don't play a rogue. I have a rogue. It's like level 103 or something, but I just haven't really played it much. I'm not much of a DPSer these days. I don't want to roll the bones. I really don't want to roll the bones.
All the bones.
Right, what else did I do this week? Because Serethus mentioned it in Discord and for no other reason, I binge watched the first season of Symphogear, and it's pretty mediocre. There's nothing wrong with it. It's very, very average in a lot of ways. It's got some nice music, although they force it a bit of the time, and it's not really mind-blowingly good. It's just nice.
Music-fueled power armor, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. Which means that they sing while they fight, but it's not. But it's like them singing while they're fighting. It's not actually. It's not like presented as a musical the way say Macross would do it. So you can hear their inflection, sort of like get perturbed by their efforts to fight. Since they have to keep singing in order to keep fighting, because apparently like the sort of the low end, not quite fully matured Symphogear is basically your ability to keep them powered depends on your ability to keep singing to some extent. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a very straight down the center sort of. I suppose I think of that class of things as sort of like shonen magical girl shows. Things like Nanoha and this. Things like they're magical girl shows, yeah, but they're mainly about blowing things up.
I see no problem with this.
But yeah, it's quite watchable, and I'll probably keep watching it because it's relatively inoffensive, all things considered. It's pretty mediocre, but it's not mediocre in the bad way where it's like, I can see how this could have been a zillion times better, but they've been lazy. No, they never set their sights very high with this, but they've sort of hit the target where they intended to. And there are some nice songs in there, and so there are some sweet scenes in there. It's kind of a little bit, the storyline's kind of a little bit janky, but it's sort of targeted at being exactly as much as you need to tell a shonen story type of story, as opposed to trying anything especially ambitious. But there's nothing wrong with that. Like it's quite watchable. It's like there's nothing really great that I can say about it because it's it's trope heavy and it's not particularly imaginative in many ways, but there's also nothing really wrong with it. There's nothing like, oh my goodness, that just annoys me, I wish that wasn't there, that doesn't make any sense. I suppose the problem that I've been finding with a lot of fiction lately, in general terms, has been like I've over the course of years, and I mean in years in my life, I have over time sort of gradually read increasing amounts of philosophy of various sorts, and what effect that has had on my viewing of fiction is, well, on one hand, I'm able to interpret fiction on a little bit more of a meta sense than I used to, but more than that, everybody in fiction has really bad metaphysics. Like, they just incoherent worldviews. And like the fact is that that's true to life. Most people have incoherent worldviews in life. They don't understand anything about the world and they make no effort to. even if they are people who go around acting like they know everything about the world. Like the internet new atheists are probably the best example of this. Like they live in this world of utter delusion about how clever and intellectual they are, when they're all basically dumb as a bag of hammers and haven't read a word of philosophy in their lives. But the thing is that you see a lot of characters, particularly in shonen. Shonen's a really bad genre for it, because people make in shonen lots of dramatic pronouncements about the way the world is, with caps.
Yeah.
But the world is not that way, and it is abundantly obvious that it's not that way if you actually stop and think about it. And that most of the time, whatever they say is just a blatant projection of their personal feelings. Mm-hmm. And a surprising amount of the time, nobody calls them on this. And this is really, it's become sort of irritating to me that, like,
how else are you going to kill God with the power of friendship?
It's so easy to flabbergast a shonen protagonist with a transparently dumb comment. And that's sort of really, it started to get on my nerves, and I'm sort of wishing that I didn't think that way now. Because it's really, it's like, I know that a lot, I think that that's actually the reason why, other than, you know, the relation factor to make it easy for the audience to associate with the characters. I think that that's part of the reason why characters in shonen are always so dumb, is because, also young, is because they need to be dumb. They need to not be world wise. The problem is that when they try and put world-wise characters in, those characters are equally dumb, so it still doesn't work.
Yeah, or in some cases, drunk. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just something that I've sort of noticed. I mean, schlocky shonen, like, I think part of the reason why I get along with the schlocky shonen of, say, Monster Hunter in the Monster Hunter anime is because it's clearly for kids, and they don't make any pronouncements which have pretensions of being anything more than the take on the world that you would give to a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's only so much that a kid can digest. But other anime that make sort of, you know, broad pronouncements about the reality of the world, most of them don't really think too much about the reality of the world. There are very few stories like that do. Like, one of the rare exceptions, and I think this on a subconscious level is part of the reason Persona is so popular, is because Persona is based on psychology. Like, the fundamental premise is founded on an understanding of psychology. It's been spun out in a very melodramatic way, but the fundamentals of Jungian psychology, like, they make sense, and they're relatively respected by everybody who's not a Freudian. But yeah, I think that's part of why Persona rings so much more rational to people, is because it was built in a way that sort of implies rationality from the outset.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't. It hasn't been the case that the author has had some grand idea about how to present to the world that when they actually do, it ends up sounding really stupid. Right. What else did I do this week? I basically got so sick of World of Warcraft and grinding AP in particular that I couldn't stand it anymore. So I just stopped logging in, or logged in for very short amounts of time.
How does it feel to be free?
I'm not free.
He's not free yet.
I'm not free.
But it's the first step.
It's more like being on methadone. But so I decided to play something else for a while. And I decided that I wasn't quite ready to jump straight back into continuing my playthrough of Neptunia Rebirth 2.
Yes.
So I decided to play Neptunia Action Unleashed, because there's no way I'm not going to play a Neptunia game. It's always going to be a Neptunia game for me. I just love those games for no good reason, because they're not good.
They're completely and utterly ridiculous and silly is why.
Now, Neptunia, Hyperdimension Neptunia Action Unleashed has the single most shallow excuse plot for a game that I have ever seen. It makes that initial release of Street Fighter V look story rich.
Wow.
I mean, it has absolutely no pretensions that it's being anything else. Like, the game is just, you can tell that it was made on a very small budget, very quickly by a small team.
But the characters are aware of the problem as well.
Generally speaking, yeah. In fact, the final boss turns out to be a total walkover, and I think Neptune comments that it is in fashion to have a final boss you couldn't possibly lose against these days.
She's right.
but the game is a Dynasty Warriors style brawler, but it's got a relatively small cast of characters. It's got I think 10 playable characters, unless there are unlockables that I haven't seen, and they all have relatively simple combos. It's not particularly complex. It's very much a switch your brain off and then beat up all of these weird and bizarre Neptunia creatures that assail you in droves. Just thrash them all and watch huge amounts of big numbers shoot up on the screen. Like, if you're the sort of person who just loves seeing big numbers appear on the screen when you hit things, this game is like perfect for that. And it's very dumb in a lot of ways. You basically run in and you mash the buttons. There are better and worse ways to mash buttons, but you can generally get by mashing buttons. It's pretty hard to screw up in any significant way. I think that I game overed myself a couple of times due to being sloppy, and that was about it. But yeah, it was a good way to kill a few brain cells for a while. And you're in it for the character interactions, though. Generally speaking, in Neptunia, the story is really, really shallow. The story is basically that because popularity, like in the world of game industry, yes, for those who don't know, the world is actually called game industry. In the world of game industry, like, it's sort of like Discworld gods that get weaker and stronger depending on how many people believe in them. A similar thing applies to the console patron units, or CPUs, that are the four goddesses of the four lands, which corresponds to the four companies.
Well, used to be four companies anyway.
Yeah, because it takes place in an alternate world where Sega continued releasing hardware. So basically they want to be more popular, and there are the way popularity spreads, because this isn't really covered in the other games, is the way people know to revere the goddesses. It's spread through games journalism effectively. And so the journalists, because the journalists are always looking for excuses to write sensational stories, basically they cook up a scheme to work with the CPUs to cover their battles, fulfilling quests for their people at close range, and basically it all grows out of that scheme. And most of the quests that you do are just about population farming, popularity farming for the various journalists, of which there are two primary ones who are playable characters as well, being Famitsu, corresponding to Famitsu, and Dengekiko, who presumably is corresponding to that publisher. What are they called? I think they're called Dengeki. I think they're called Dengeki. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, they're two publishers. And basically you just kill things for their entertainment, I guess. And things get out of hand, and this particular giant robot thing emerges, and you've got to beat it, and there doesn't seem to be any good reason. And Blan comments at one point that it's really annoying having to fight an opponent who's not really doing what they're doing for any good reason. But yeah, so the game knows that it's transparent. Now the game is very simple, very cheaply made. It's nothing more than fan service for fans of the franchise, and I mean that in both ways. Both the fact that, it's giving you an opportunity to see the characters, and it's giving you the opportunity to see the characters in various states of undress, because clothing destruction is a major mechanic, as it often is in Japanese games, is a major mechanic in this one. Something that the characters themselves complain quite stridently about, and in fact point out that it's not a mechanic in the other games, so why is it suddenly happening here?
Reasons?
Well, that's pretty much what they get told. But
yeah, that's generally the underlying plot of the entire Neptunia franchise.
Yeah, and I do love it for that. But so that's happening. That's a thing. And there's a few, like, you can earn alternate versions of the character's outfit, which are either easier or harder to damage, or can't be damaged, or whatever. And in fact, there's they're tied into news articles, like Dengeki and Famitsu will present a news article of like if a character has had their clothes destroyed a certain number of times, they will get a news thing, and like they'll get a reward which is like, oh well, it's harder to tear, or if they're getting too powerful so the monsters are not getting an opportunity to tear their clothes, then the news article will be talking about how people are criticizing the CPU in question for getting too strong, and therefore they never end up giving fan service shots. So yeah,
There's absolutely no hiding it there.
yeah, there's no dissembling taking place in this game whatsoever. It is entirely straight down the middle of exactly what it is trying to do at all times. Now, it has the same major complaint that I have for most Neptunia content, in that it has an appalling localization. Like,
Yeah.
I wish that I understood Japanese, because the very little Japanese I do know makes it very clear to me that they have just rewritten large chunks of the thing. And being that this is, a journalism-centric game, there was actually one egregious jab at Gamergate in there.
Eh.
And like, it's just really sad, like how pathetic do you have to be that you have to sit up on your platform as a localization writer and take a jab that is not going to make any sense in 6 months' time at whoever you happen to not like because you disagree with them politically. Like, it's just profoundly pathetic in my eyes that they're obsessed with doing this. But they did. They couldn't help themselves. There's only one in there. Say again?
Oh, I found with Gamergate jabs like that, if you go and look at it, a lot of the people that are on these localization teams actually admit to not having a clue what Gamergate is. It's just a popular target.
Yeah.
They just take the stab because it's free press.
Oh no, this one's subtle enough that they obviously knew what they were talking about.
Okay.
Because they don't name Gamergate. They just make a sarcastic quip about people attacking other people for journalistic integrity and social justice. Like they know exactly what they're talking about. And they directly imply that it's baseless. Like they're
Who does the localization?
I don't know. I think that they contract people in house to do it. But the fact is that the industry contains only a handful of people, so it doesn't really matter which company it is. They will have outsourced some of it. The problem, my main problem with it, is that it shows what a free hand they're taking with the writing, and confirms again for me that a lot of the stuff is localized in a certain way. Now, there is a style guide to the localization. Like, the localized characters are consistent with the Neptunia games because they're not quite the same as the Japanese ones. Because the one breakdown in consistency is if you watch the Neptunia anime, which was not localized, and you watch the translations which that uses for things, their characters are a little bit different. And the voice actors deliver completely differently. And generally speaking, the English one is worse across the board.
Yeah.
Erin Fitzgerald has talked about Neptunia and how bad the experience has been, and how she's at a point where she's basically phoning in anything she does for Neptunia because they don't give her good direction at all. She's normally a good voice actor, but apparently she does terrible in those games because she doesn't have any direction.
Everybody there does terrible. I don't know which character she does. I haven't looked at the cast. But,
Sounds like Chie.
Say again?
Sounds like Chie.
It's not really
that one. But anyway,
Yeah,
she's talked at length about how bad the Neptunia direction is.
But at any rate, I think the one that really sticks out as excessively bad, the most specifically, is probably Rom, because Rom is supposed to be about 6 years old, sort of thing, but she sounds like about 30 trying to put on a falsetto voice. It's really, really terrible.
Do they actually make fun of that? Because I feel like that's a missed opportunity if they don't.
No, because the fact is, in the Japanese she doesn't. In the Japanese she sounds like a very young child, a very shy young child. Like the voice acting is on point, and in fact the voice acting is generally on point for all of the characters. The one thing that is like seems to be a real departure, that actually works for the one thing that works in their localization, is Neptune uses a lot of slang that hasn't been current since the Master System was current.
Wow.
Like it's clearly she's clearly sort of like uncool and over the hill in terms of the way she conducts her speech, which I think is actually sort of funny in a meta way. But I have no idea if it's deliberate or if it's that the people writing the script are that uncool. Okay, so Erin Fitzgerald voices Noir. Noir's probably my favorite of the girls, but her voice acting in English is like terribly inconsistent within the one character.
Ugh.
It's because I think that generally speaking, Noir's voice acting probably cuts the closest to the Japanese voice acting in terms of at its best. At its worst, it's just a bad version of the same thing. Sort of. Not like some of the other ones, just like, is this even supposed to be the same character? Noir's clearly the same character, but doesn't maintain very good consistency. Anytime she's supposed to emote beyond her baseline tone, it just doesn't happen in the English, where it does in the Japanese. It's like the English version of Noir only has one mood.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds like in line with what she said. That sounds like a direction problem.
It probably is, but the fact is that they churn out a lot of these things, and it's all kind of slack. I didn't see too many spelling mistakes this time. The ones which have really large scripts have a lot of spelling mistakes in them. There are some tooltip mistakes as well. Like it gives you the wrong instructions a couple of times, several times in fact, on how to use particular attacks. Which, if you look it up in the tutorial, it will give you the right instructions. Or if you look it up on the moves list sheet, it will give you the right instructions. But when the tooltip pops up when you get it for the first time, it gives you the wrong instructions, which isn't helpful.
No,
that's not helpful at all. That's quite bad.
Not even remotely.
It's got pretty annoying typesetting problems. They chose a relatively ugly font, and it's got that annoying typesetting problem where for an apostrophe they use an open quote rather than a close quote.
Okay.
You see it sometimes in really badly typeset programs, and that's consistently used in this one. Like, that is a rookie mistake that I don't understand how it possibly could have gone through unless they just didn't care about quality control at all.
That's a distinct possibility.
Unless like literally everybody at that company is illiterate. Like it doesn't make much sense to me why that's the case, but it's everywhere in every situation where it's used. There are no correct uses of the apostrophe in the sense of using the correct character. They use the wrong character in every case. There was some other stuff as well that was annoying. I can't remember it offhand. But yeah, generally speaking, the other thing was that you have the option of 1920 by 1080 resolution. But it basically just enlarges the window, and the graphics scale up in a janky fashion. Like a lot of the stuff starts looking really grainy, and in a couple of situations, it actually starts to look like scan lines appear on the screen in certain cinematics, like the opening movie, because it's just been stretched and it doesn't look right.
Yeah.
So all in all, it doesn't make any difference because the only people who will buy and play this game are people like me who love Neptunia things because they're Neptunia. And people who actually care about game quality wouldn't play a game this bad to begin with. So it doesn't really matter. But yeah, it is the most lazily, cheaply ported and localized game I have played in quite some time.
Blah.
I still loved it because it was Neptunia. I just turned on the Japanese voice acting and tried to forget that I basically listened to the interactions by means of the mood rather than the words, because the words clearly didn't make much sense. And some of them were just, total rewrites of whatever was being said before. But you can't have everything you want, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's $5 at my local game store to pick up this video game.
Say again?
It's $5 to get the Vita version at my local game store.
Oh, it was cheaply made to begin with. Like it was released for cheap because it's just sort of a gag game on the side. But like as far as the game goes, like it's just not very good in general terms. It's balanced very poorly between characters. Like as I said, Noir's my favorite character, but she's generally speaking quite weak in the game, despite being probably the second most popular character in the franchise, because the combat system dramatically favors either having the ability to move very quickly, like to progress quickly by using attacks, to process along the battlefield, or to have range. Noir has neither of those. She has a short attack range, and she almost stands in place while fighting, except for when she does a couple of short dashes at the end, and then one of her attacks has a long dash followed by a dash back in the reverse direction, so it doesn't actually move you anywhere. But because of that, it means she sort of falls on a crack in the design, and her major attribute is that each of the strikes of her combo comes out much quicker than for most other characters. But the fact is that because she's always standing still, people will crowd in behind her and hit her anyway. So that was sort of annoying. But that sort of problem is rife through the characters. Like, they're just not balanced well. But you generally don't expect much good balance in these things anyway, since it's just sort of a Dynasty Warrior style game. And Dynasty Warriors usually has dramatically outstanding characters and really, really bad ones. But, yeah, I still enjoyed playing it because I always enjoy them, but it was always a bit disappointing to see the rough edges sticking out when, if they actually cared, they could probably get rid of them with minimal expenditure.
Yeah. All right. So we're actually well and truly overdue for a break.
Yep, we're at an hour and 20 minutes. So let's take a break and we'll come back with the rest of All's Week when we're back. So let's do that so we don't lose our file and get it corrupted and stuff like happens when we run too long. So we'll be right back, folks. And we're back.
Yes.
So, we interrupted Vol's week after Neptunia, so... anything
It's
else?
more cut it off because it would keep going.
Yes.
Well, I was sort of getting to the end of what I was saying. I don't
Yeah.
think that I have. I don't think I had anything else particular that I wanted to talk about after Neptunia, other than I'm hoping that I will get to play some more games at some point once I've broken away from the machine of World of Warcraft, because I think I haven't used it yet, but I think I've got enough artifact power to get concordance, which is the ability which just stacks up for eternity on your artifact weapon, but it does almost nothing, so you don't really care. But it does mean that I'm not taking the optimal path, because I'm not taking the optimal path. The optimal path is to grind AP literally for eternity.
Yeah.
Cut off.
No, thank you.
Don't really want that.
Full of sanity.
Yeah.
No kidding.
I've used up most of it already. Like, I can't afford to keep up with this sort of thing. Other than that, I just hope that I don't know, like, I'm going to find a job and stuff, It doesn't sound particularly appealing. I don't know where I'm going to go and work once I've got this PhD in hand. I didn't really have a good plan when I started it, to be honest. But I don't have the money to move anywhere, that's the thing. So I'll have to work in New Zealand, probably quite locally for a while, until I can build up the capital to actually do anything particularly ambitious, if I can think of anything ambitious that I want to do.
Yes.
Oh, well.
Anyway,
that's the end of my week.
Yep.
Okie doke.
Ari, go for it.
I actually had quite a few things, but I'll try to go through them fairly quickly since we're over time. So we'll go backwards. I'll talk about
All right.
the web novel last, which goes in tandem with Axiom Verge. So we'll do this last. Oh dear. I have gas in my throat.
Professionalism.
I said that right after I took a drink. And it got capable of
Delightful.
stuff.
Mm.
That was not very elegant. Okay, so we'll start with Fury, the most recent game I've been playing. This was on sale on PSN, so I got it for $5. And it's an isometric, boss-focused action game, if that makes any sense. Somebody just
Go on.
Vol.
Yeah, that was Vol again. His Skype is Skyping.
Okay. So hang on. Should we pause it and get him back because he exploded?
Now carry on, and I'll try and bring him back live-ish.
Okay. So we'll attempt to fish the ball back as I stall for time and try to remember where I was. All right. So
Yep.
Oh, there he is. Okay,
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, this has been happening to me a bit lately. I get disconnected and then the redial button just doesn't work. Thanks, Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Skype.
I've had that happen a few times. But yeah. So Fury, Furi, is an isometric, boss-focused action game. There's no trash or anything. It's just boss to boss to boss in the levels. But the bosses are multi-phase encounters with that you have to take a serious chunk of time to beat through. Like the third boss is the one I've beaten most recently, and he took me 15 minutes on my final attempt to beat. These are not short boss fights. And he only had 4 health bars.
Only 4.
Yeah, that's quite a low number. Most of them have 6 or more.
Yeah, a lot of games, anywhere between 4 and 6 is final boss levels.
Yeah. So the way this game works, the game will trick you. It shows 3, like you have 3 health bars, but you only really have 1. Those extra health bars, if you run out of a health bar, that counts as a life. It resets the current phase of the boss and it resets your life. So what you do is you have your health bar, and you have 3 lives basically. And when you lose a life, when your health bar hits 0, you lose one of the blips that represents one of your health bars, and the whole phase resets. All the damage you did to the boss in its current phase is reset, and you restart to the start of the phase. So it's quite challenging. You have that life to get through the phase, and if you run out of lives, you have to restart the whole fight. And you're not going to one-shot these bosses. You've got to learn their patterns. So you're going to run out of lives. You're going to wind up restarting phases and the whole boss encounter several times. Because on top of the boss being broken into, like, each health bar represents a phase of the fight, those phases are further subdivided into a ranged segment and a melee segment sometimes. It's very, very complicated. But it's really fun. It's, as far as it being isometric, it's part twin-stick shooter and part isometric melee combat game, with a heavy emphasis on parrying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. It's not an easy game. It's not soul-crushingly difficult. You just got to learn the patterns. But it does get kind of bullet helly. at certain points. I'm having fun with it. I don't know if I'll finish it right now. I think I'm going to put it on the shelf for a time when I'm really more in the mood for that. I mostly got it because it was $5.
Yeah, $5 is a rather compelling reason to buy a game.
And it was
Yeah,
fun.
I used to think that way, but like I've had Fury on my wish list for like 2 years now, and my rationale for not getting it was that I've got too much other stuff to play.
Yeah, I'm getting kind of the same way.
Yeah, it'd been one I had my eye on for a while, and it just happened to hit $5 on PSN. I'm like, oh, I can get a platinum trophy maybe, until I saw the requirements for that and said, I'm not getting a platinum trophy on that. I'll just beat the game. This has been a running theme with me in recent games where it's like, oh, there's a speedrun trophy. Yeah, I'm not getting that.
Yeah, a lot of the platinum trophies, like having a platinum trophy on your profile is nice, and it's something shiny you can brag about, but who has the time? And who really wants to do speedruns? Nobody wants to do speedruns.
Like
the highest trophy count that I've got is like something like 89% or something on Darksiders. Like other than that, I don't have hardly any. And I'm never gonna. I'm never gonna play Darksiders because you have to like kill 150 dudes in the Griffin sequence, which happens once during the game and can't be repeated.
Yeah,
there aren't 150 enemies.
No.
You have to like run through the game multiple times, or like reload and do it over and over, or something like that.
Get near the end and die, or something like that.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Oh dear. Yeah, I platinumed a few games. Platinum Persona 5, that was an insane endeavor that took over 200 hours.
Yeah, not doing that.
Yeah, I did that. I'm not sure if I'm glad I did that or not. I don't quite know why I did that. I think it was just, it's Persona, so I have to do this. Because I rave about Persona more than most people. So I felt I had to do it, I guess. So I did that. But yeah, no. A lot of these games, all the exploration platformers have like, beat the game in under 2 hours and collect everything while you do it. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Because what that would entail is having a YouTube video of a guy doing it and half the time going and mirroring his moves while I repeatedly pause the game. That's what that would turn into real quick.
See.
That's about the only way I can think to do it. Because some of these time requirements are pretty tight. And I'm just like, okay, Shantae, I love you, honey, but no, we're not doing that. So I'm not platinuming that one. I'm not platinuming Fury because it's also got another speedrun Chibo. The game's hard enough as it is. I'll be happy to beat the game. Thank you very much.
As I've mentioned before, Disgaea put me off the idea of
Disgaea is the worst. I think I completed all the first 4 Disgaea games. I haven't played the 5th one yet because I didn't like the main character. But I've done all 4, and I think 3 is the one where I have 2 Chibos, and I beat the main story.
2?
I have 2
through the whole story.
And one of them is jumping 50 times in the overworld.
Yeah, I got that one as well.
Yeah, so that's not very good. Disgaea Platinums, if you get those, you are actually insane. You need help.
Yeah. You kind of do.
So
I don't know.
The
item world's terrible.
Yeah, I don't think that any of them are particularly difficult so much as they seem like they would just take a truly monumental amount of time, like amount of time I have sunk into World of Warcraft amounts of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Like, rebirth the character 50 times, and that means getting to level 99999, and then reset it to 1 and do it again or something like that?
Total time played on my main for this expansion, 50 days, 20 hours, 52 minutes, 36 seconds.
That might be enough time on one of the Disgaea games. Maybe.
Yeah.
Don't try and play Disgaea games. They are known for being the worst things to play.
Is that just as a side note? I know we're getting a bit off topic here, but I'm sort of curious. Is that item world thing in all of the Disgaea games?
Since at least 2. I think it was in the remake of 1. I played the PSP versions of 1 and 2, so they had a lot of mashed together content there. Like they put in a bunch of stuff that came in the future editions into the PSP versions of 1 and 2. I didn't play the original releases. So
because like, if you're really bad at tactics games like me, you can sink a large number of hours into Disgaea 3 before ever hearing about the item world. And when they announced that it was the feature which was in there via tutorial, my eyes just sort of widened and I was just sort of thinking, you're crazy. You must be crazy.
Completely nuts. Yes.
You want to go through 100 floors to rank out one item? Have fun.
Good luck with that.
It doesn't even necessarily make it any good.
No, it doesn't.
No.
That's okay. I play the Sky games mostly for the story, so I pick 2 or 3 characters I really like, and I'll level them up and go play through the games like that. And their stories are often very silly and nonsensical, but they're fun.
Yes.
Oh, anyway, yeah. Oh, this guy. I should get around to playing 5 at some point, but yeah. Anyway, I got a bit to go through, so I should probably hurry along. So Fury, good game. I will talk more about it when I actually beat it. It'll be a bit though, because I'm coming up on work time. I've been trying to burn as much as I can into leisure time before work time starts again on Monday. And work time will last several weeks before I have free time again. I'll have time to play a little bit of single-player games here and there, but that'll be about it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Other game I played, Soma. So this is the guys that made Amnesia, the first one, not the second one. They made Soma. And this is another horror adventure, but this one's very story-driven with voice acting and stuff. Like, it's actually got a story going on. And it pulls at the very beginning. I'm going to spoil a little bit of the beginning of it. But the beginning is a bait and switch. Your character has a brain aneurysm that bleeds periodically, and he's got a death clock on him. He's going to die at some point. So he goes to a doctor to have the doctor run a billion simulations on his head to find something that works. So this involves him getting a brain scan. So you sit in the machine, and then he does the scan, and then you wake up in a chair, and you're like 100 years in the future, and you're like, what happened? So naturally, you think, oh, this is just one of the simulations the guy is running. You see like leaky oil from the ceiling and stuff for robots, and you're like, oh, well, that must represent like, you know, the aneurysm bleeding and stuff. Okay, and the game does this deliberately, I'm sure, because that is not at all what's happening. You're actually in the future 100 years.
Right.
Yeah. So the thing is, the machine you use creates a copy of your brain, and the big thing in this game is copying brains, and what that means. It's a post-apocalyptic world, so everybody's dead, and it's got a rogue AI, but not like AI you think crazy Hal and stuff. It's an AI that can't talk. It's just got one function, and it's doing it really well, and that's keep any form of humanity that's left alive. So it'll keep the organic people alive as best as it can, and it'll try to preserve the consciousnesses that are copied as best it can. So you wake up, and turns out you find out really quickly, you're actually in a robot.
Okay.
The main character is an idiot, is the biggest critique I have with this game, because he never understands the fact that when he's going, the helper person has to keep lying to him that she's going to transfer his brain into another body whenever he has to do something. But he never understands that means copy the brain. A new copy of him will continue the task, and the old one will either die or be stuck. And he never gets stuck.
That's pretty unpleasant.
Yes. So she has to keep lying to him to get him to do stuff. Like there's one part where he has to go deeper into the ocean where there's higher pressure, because he's in an underwater research lab. And they're trying to release an arc into space with copies of human consciousness because the Earth's ruined. Everybody's dead. And all that's left is these consciousnesses, basically. And the organic people are, for all intents and purposes, suffering a fate worse than death, the few that are left.
Marvelous.
Sure.
So his goal is to put a copy of himself on this ark with his robot girlfriend that he gets halfway through the game, and they're going to try and shoot it off into space. It makes sense in context. But he just never understands that every time he has to transfer, he's not transferring. He's making a copy of himself to put in that body, and his old body, where his consciousness is right now, is going to die. And the new him that got made is the one that gets to go on. And the game really hammers home how stupid he is, because he'll be in this new body, and he'll see his old body still there looking around confused, and he doesn't get it.
You'd think after you see that once, maybe twice, you'd figure it out.
I mean, he's probably in really, really deep denial.
Or he's an idiot.
Well, a lot of the when humanity died, a lot of the humans in this research lab started volunteering to get their consciousness transferred, and they didn't quite grasp it either. So they thought maybe after they got scanned and they killed themselves right away, their consciousness would somehow jump to the one inside the ark.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work like that.
No, and this is what sets the AI into overdrive mode. I gotta save everybody, because they're all killing themselves. Stupid. So it's a very interesting game in the way it handles that particular moral dilemma. Like, and there's one particularly memorable puzzle where you need a passcode to get through a door, and they've copied the consciousness of the guy that has the passcode, but you have to set him up in a virtual environment. You have to keep booting him up and effectively killing him, and booting him up again until you get an environment that he likes where he'll be calm enough to talk about the passcode.
That seems needlessly cruel.
So you keep making copies of this guy and then turning off the simulation, effectively killing the guy. and putting it back up again to try.
This
and
whole
get the
thing sounds
passcode.
profoundly unsettling.
It seriously
is.
does, doesn't it?
Yeah, and this is all great. I love the story stuff. I love it's all creepy and unsettling. But the problem is, it's an amnesia horror game, which means you got to hide from monsters.
Oh,
The first
man.
monster, and this is where the game falls apart. Not because it's because the monsters aren't scary. And this is where I found the YouTube video of a guy named Joseph Anderson or something like that I really liked, and he had the same opinion I did. The monsters aren't scary. They're just robots that are controlled by the AI. The first one I saw, I went up to it because it's just a shambling little robot with a searchlight on it. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. Let me go see what that is. I've seen other live robots in the station. I go walk up to the thing and it just runs me over. I'm like, oh, I guess I wasn't supposed to do that. I was supposed to hide from it. So all these interesting little story bits with the biggest idiot of a protagonist I've ever seen, which are really good and you want to sit through, are broken up by chunks of hide from the monster when the monster's not scary. And I just don't care for this part.
Convenience.
Yeah, it's like, okay, story time. Oh, I gotta do another monster segment. It's not like, it's really tense, I gotta get around this monster. It's like, another one. Really?
Yeah.
Can we just skip this part? So it's a hit and miss game. Half the gameplay is just not fun, but the story that is there, when you get into it and the character relations especially, because this is mostly a character-driven story, it's not, the narrative is very compact. I've told you everything already. There's not a whole lot to it.
Yeah.
But it's a very character-driven thing. And for what's there, the characters are good, even if the protag's an idiot.
Honestly, the story itself sounds like it could be. It's more the psychological type of scary, like it's what is a soul and existence and all that sort of dealy.
It sounds to me like the game would have been better off being a sort of a darker version of Portal.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Instead of having hide from the searchlight wheelie bin, you put in a puzzle or something.
Yeah, and that would have worked a lot better, but unfortunately, we have hide from the monsters as our gameplay mechanic.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Unfortunately, that's the thing. But
I really don't like that particular mechanic. Like, I'm not particularly big on stealth games at the best of times, but the whole monster thing, hide from the monster thing, I really just don't appreciate it at all. It
can be good when it's done well, but when it's not done well, it's really bad.
It feels like forced atmosphere anytime it's doing it. Like
exactly.
One of the fear games does it really well because you know the enemies are going to be loud when they come out. They're going to be talking in English. That's more genuine atmosphere. If you don't, it was either the first or second one that does it really well. That's genuine horror atmosphere.
Yeah,
where you know
first fear was really good. The other two were just kind of.
Yeah. But
I don't really even like it when it's done well. Like that part of the reason that I never did a second playthrough of BioShock Infinite was that I hate the asylum bit near the end where you spend all of your time waiting for things to shamble past. Like any game that requires me to spend a lot of time under a bed waiting for things to move around, like it's a combination of creeped outness and utter impatience will usually get to me.
Yeah. Especially for a game where up to that point, every time something that you don't agree with shows up, you just shoot it.
Yeah, you blow its head off or set it on fire or whatever. You have the power.
Oh no, racists! Bang!
Dear. But yeah, I don't like that either. I'm conditioned to horror games. It doesn't take me very long playing one to start treating it as a mechanic, and the fear leaves as soon as that happens. Any kind of genuine horror or suspense you feel, any terror you would feel, leaves the second it snaps into mechanic mode. And this happens very quick for me because I played so many. Just from sheer numbers. I know what to expect, and it becomes a mechanic very quickly.
Yeah, so, I get that way. It's one of the reasons why the horror genre really doesn't scare me or just catch me at all, because you could walk down a horror door and you're just thinking, okay, jump scare in 3, 2, there it is.
Yeah,
I've heard that the new, I think the new Outlast game, it spends most of it spends several hours baiting you into thinking that there's a jump scare coming.
Yep.
And then it never arrives. And then they wait, apparently according to reviewers that I've seen, they wait just long enough to convince you that there isn't one coming, and then they deliver it. And there's just that one in the game.
That is done extremely well then. That is how a jump scare really works. It plays with your expectations.
I don't know. I don't like the jump scare tactic at all. I much prefer atmosphere horror.
Well, yeah, it's all part of it. Subtlety
Yeah.
is the name of the game for a horror game, and unfortunately, nobody gets that.
Yeah. The best horror games set up a good atmosphere, and you can clearly see the monster coming. Like, you see the thing that's going to kill you. It's a bad thing, and you don't have to hide from it, but it's going to get you, and that's going to be scary if it does its atmosphere well. It doesn't matter if you have to hide from it or fight it or whatever. But that's
If it does
really
atmosphere
hard
well,
to
it
do.
doesn't matter if it gets you or not.
Yeah, it's just that is really, really hard to pull off.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I do recommend Soma. Even though you have to sit through the hype and monster bits, they're fairly easy, and they are quick, but they are breaks from what's really interesting. So the psychological horror parts of the game are there, and they do have the hype from the monster bits, but it's pretty easy to get through the hype from the monster bits pretty quick. And you turn them into AI very fast in this game because they all have patterns you can abuse, and you figure this out really quick. So you can get through them pretty quick. But for what's there, if it just cut those sections out of the game, I'd bump it up like 2 grades on a rating scale. But like, they actually detract from the game. But as it is, it's still worth getting. Not $30, but yeah, I didn't get it for 30. But
yeah. But I think you're on the right track. Actually, replace the hide from the monster bits with a puzzle reminiscent of Portal, maybe centering around the body swapping or something like that.
Yeah, that would have been a lot better. And there are mini puzzles in it like that, but they don't go very deep, like at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do recommend Soma. Wait for it to go on sale, and then
We should be having the summer sale very soon.
I hope so.
Probably just after E3, which is only a couple of weeks away.
Yep. So expect new starvation for the next few weeks.
And then hype and snark from us probably.
I don't know. They're going to have to announce some stuff because honestly, it hasn't. They haven't really teased anything that I think is particularly significant yet.
No, a lot of
surprised about that.
A lot of the pre-show or the pre-lead up to E3 is here's all the stuff we're doing that is going to coincide with E3, but is noticeably not E3.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of good stuff come out the first half of this year, so hopefully we'll get some new announcements at E3. It'll go.
It has been a very good year for games so far.
Yeah. I do have one more thing I want to talk about. Kind of, they go together, and then we'll end my week because I'm trying to get through this fairly quickly because we're over time. Yeah. So Axiom Verge was a game I played, and I wanted to 100% this game on my first run through so I could call it done, but that is impossible. It requires 3 runs to 100%.
Ick.
This is and the reason I picked Axiom Verge is because I was listening to a audiobook of Worm. I wanted to finish that up too. So this is the whole reason I was playing exploration platformers, because they don't require me to read anything, so I can listen to an audiobook while I play.
Mm-hmm.
Axiom Verge tries to have a story, but it's so inconsequential and nonsensical it doesn't matter. They try way too hard to make you care, and you just don't.
You're there to shoot things.
Yeah, you're there to you're there to play Metroid.
Basically.
But I'll do Axiom Verge before I talk about Worm. But Axiom Verge is your standard exploration platform, Metroid style, very Metroid style, more than Castlevania style. So the problem with the game and 100%ing it is there are secret areas that can spawn anywhere randomly on the map, and you have to go check everywhere on the map, and you get 5 per run, and you need to go through 15 of them to 100% everything. And this is because three hidden weapons and several minor power-ups are hidden inside these things, and they can practically spawn in any square of the map. And
that sounds like altogether too much work.
Yeah.
It sounds like a needlessly fiddly way of doing it.
Yeah. So I did the 5 on one run through, and then said, okay, you know what, I'm done. And it gives you one of 3 secret weapons every time that are ludicrously OP. I got the Heat Seeker weapon, so I got a beam gun that has its missiles lock onto people. But the other ones are like a giant laser beam as big as your character model, and I forget what the other one is. So you can get secret weapons like that. The bosses in the game are fairly interesting. They were the highlight of the game by far. You play that game to fight the bosses because they're all very unique and fairly challenging. You have to pay attention to their patterns. You're probably going to die once or twice against them, but they're all very big and imposing and fun. I had a lot of fun with the bosses. The rest of that game is nowhere near as good as the other exploration platforms I played this past 2 weeks. Anywhere close. It has easily the worst map design.
So what you're saying is if you're feeling like playing Axiom Verge, go play Hollow Knight.
Yeah, pretty much. Hollow Knight also has a ginormous map, but you can get around fairly quickly because there are quick travel stations. The quick travel station actually in Verge is there's one area in the map, the very center of the map, that you have to go to every time you want to quick travel, and it only not even that. It's just one of the head thingies you see on the cover, and it just floats between 3 different stops.
Right.
So it doesn't put you anywhere close to where you need to be looking for stuff when you're backtracking.
Yeah.
It's very problematic. But yeah, it is. The map design is far inferior to either of the Shantaes I played or Hollow Knight.
Mm-hmm.
But this wandering around forever looking for stuff gave me a lot of time to power through the rest of Worm, which is what I was really playing these games for anyway, because I needed something I could play and keep my fingers occupied and feel like I'm doing something while I'm listening to an audiobook. I hate just listening to an audiobook. And I wanted to finish the web series that So Dark Skynet is the good guy.
Oh dear.
This is a running joke. So I finished Worm finally, and this is one of the, if not the most popular web serials out there in novel format. And people have pestered me forever and ever and ever to go read it. And I finally did. I finally finished it. All 30 books. Oh boy, that was long.
How long are these books, by the way?
About half as long to 3/4 as long as Grave Peril.
Okay, so not overly long.
Yeah, no. It's about as long as the Dresden Files are right now. Maybe a little bit longer.
The books for the Dresden Files are actually getting longer as the series progresses.
Yeah, but I mean, if you took book 1 to book 15 into book 15, you get somewhere in the ballpark of around book 26 in Worm.
Right.
So, Worm, as I've said before, is a superhero story where characters get superpowers based on trauma that happens to them. And the type of trauma dictates what kind of power they have.
Mm-hmm.
So, the big thing in this universe is initially, Wildbow, who's the author, didn't really have his footing yet. It takes him about 3 or 4 chapters, or 3 or 4 books, arcs. They have different names for them. I'm going to call them books. 3 or 4 books to really get his footing before he gets going. And he has, in this universe, set up what are effectively world bosses in an MMO that just pop up once every 4 months to wreck everybody's stuff. And that's the big driving force that keeps everything from falling apart, is because every 4 months, everybody has to get together to stop these things, or the world ends.
No matter what their personal feelings might be about cooperating.
Yeah, this is a thing where there are strict penalties and punishments for people that interfere with stopping. They call them the Endbringers. So the story really gets off when the first one that you meet in the story is the second one to show up canonically, but it's the first one that is actually live in story, and that's Leviathan, the water one. And the dude's like super powerful. He's a big kaiju water monster. They're not as big as like normal kaiju. They're about half as tall as of a building. They're a little bit bigger than a normal 2-story house for the most part. They're around 30 feet tall. But this thing has macro water hydrokinesis is what he calls it. So he can cause tsunamis on command. And if he's in water, he can effectively teleport. And they kill heroes in the double digits every time they show up. And heroes, they say, are like 0.1% of the population are people with powers. So these guys chew through heroes pretty quick. So each time one of these shows up is when Wildbow realizes he needs to do something to shake the story pretty much. And they have a few of these. They have, when Leviathan shows up is when the story really gets in gear and going. After the Leviathan fight, they have double-digit deaths in that fight, in the low numbers, and they call that a win, just because they drove him off before more people died, and the city didn't get totally destroyed. It can recover. That's considered a win in this universe.
Does anybody know why these things are?
That's the whole point of the main overarching story, is why are the Endbringers here, and how do we stop them for good? And what are the powers? Because they're tied to the Endbringers in some way, and they reveal that at the end eventually, kind of. They all but explicitly state it, but it's still, air quotes, just a theory, but it's been confirmed by Wildbow that, yeah, the characters were totally right. So they find out at the end why. But, yeah. And the story goes, usually Taylor, our protagonist, Spider-Girl, Skitter, does some stuff, and she's a villain because she falls in with a bad crowd because the heroes are jerks. And then Endbringer shows up, and then she tries to be a good guy while being on the villain side, and then another big threat shows up, this time not an Endbringer, but Endbringer level. And then she does the same thing, and then another catastrophe happens. And then she tries to be a good guy while still being a villain, and then another Endbringer shows up. And the story follows this pattern the whole way through. Trying not to give too much away, but The best summary I saw for the entire story is Spider-Girl and Blondie Holmes fight Nazis and Bond villains while Saleh's battling angels in the background until the Joker pulls aggro from Galactus.
I don't think that I have time during the scope of the show to process all of that.
No.
No, that is the most apt description. It's very over the top and ridiculous, especially near the end. He has a problem with scaling the story. The story's got issues. There are plot holes, and it does have a lot of issues. I don't recommend it to people that are not looking for an over-the-top ridiculous story, which is bigger and bigger bads. And the story does get pretty dark. Like a lot of they weren't kidding when they said so dark Skynet is the good guy. Skynet is actually the nicest character in the entire series. So
Oh dear.
Like the computer wants to kill all humans.
well, the computer that thinks everybody's a jerk but tries to be nice to them anyway. But
That doesn't sound like
Right.
anything that Skynet ever did.
no, it's mostly a joke about the tone. It has nothing to do with the character itself. But I have trouble recommending this. I know why people like it. I can see why people like this, but it's a really hard sell to people. If you get into it, it's really good, but it's kind of like the Naziverse in a way. It's a big universe with a lot of rules, and you got to really
No,
break
I've
through a
got
layer of
the-
concrete.
I've got the beat on it now. This is just a light novel written in the West.
Kind of, yeah.
There's no
it's-
kind of about it. It exactly is that. Like, everything you've described is exactly your classic, utterly toony light novel
yeah,
with a
it's-
ridiculously overcomplicated world and a whole bunch of overwrought moral ambiguity.
Yeah. Given the choice, I would probably not go back and read it again. I would have opted out of it, is my level of enjoyment. Given that I've already chewed into it, I can stomach it and it's okay, but it's not a work of art. If I
Because it doesn't have an editor.
That is true. That's a big thing. You're effectively reading the first draft of everything because it's a serial, and this is an issue. This is a real problem when trying to read this thing. But I mean, if you want to give it a shot, if you can manage to chew past the Leviathan arc, there's some good stuff in there, but you're in for a super dark story that is spotty, is the best way to put it. I don't know if it's worth it to people. It's hard to recommend. It's just too long. There's a lot of stuff in there that could be cut. A lot of story beats are repetitive, but it does have a lot of really big, good highlights.
Like half of the last 3 Harry Potter novels.
Yeah.
Like it's all filler.
Yeah, a lot of
It's
it
all
could be
filler
cut.
and people being angsty.
Yeah. Pointless arguments carrying on
And-
for 6 months of
that-
world time.
And that in particular was an example of a writer getting too big to feel like she needed to listen to an editor.
Yeah.
So yeah, Worm. There are good highlights in there. I would not slog through 30 books again to go through that. I only really got it and started reading it because people would not shut up about it. A couple of my friends loved it to death, but I don't recommend it to everybody. If you make it past the Leviathan arc and want to keep going, it's probably for you. Otherwise, I would drop it there. But if you're interested in the concept, give it to the Leviathan arc and see if you like it.
I'll read it if it gets a book deal and an editor.
He's doing that. He's actually got an editor now going through and editing the whole thing.
Like a professional editor, not like somebody who calls himself an editor.
I don't know. I didn't look that deep into
Because
it.
there's a big difference. Like a lot of that's the reason why most fan fiction is so bad. Like even top end fan fiction is bad, is because people think that a beta reader is just as good as an editor. No, an editor is somebody who can only keep their job if they do a good job.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look that deep into it, but it's a thing I did. I went through it. I have an opinion on it, but I'm not actually real clear on what it is even after finishing it because it's got problems, but it has highlights. There you go. Make it through the Leviathan arc and see if you like it or not, if you like the premise. But that's about all I can really say about it. So, okay. So not a glowing review of that. That's been monopolizing my audiobook time, and I'm quite happy to have that back so I can spend it on other things. And now people can shut up about me going to go read it.
Yes.
So, okay.
Shall we do some news?
Right, let's do some news.
All right. Let me see. All right. The first one that I think we can quickly touch on here, a lot of it's actually Blizzard related this week. We have the first non-Blizzard game showing up on Battle.net, and people are getting all salty about it.
Now, the thing is, it's not called Battle.net anymore, remember?
Oh, right.
They made a big hoo-ha about changing the name to something. I don't know what. I don't even know what it's called. Like
Ah.
it's just called the Blizzard app when you launch the
Blizzard
thing on
launcher
your
or something now, yeah.
Like they wanted to get away from having a branded thing with an association with particular games.
Sorry, but it's Battle.net and it shall forever be Battle.net.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody actually call it. It's like when they renamed the largest telecommunications company in New Zealand Spark, but everybody still calls it Telecom.
Yeah, well, they named Australian Telecom Telstra 20 years ago now, and people still call it Telecom occasionally. Except when they're swearing at it, then it becomes bloody Telstra, which is, the correct way of pronouncing it. Anywho.
Yeah, and then you got to sort of spit on the side of the road.
You do.
Get the taste out of your mouth.
So the game that is showing up on Battle.net is Destiny 2, which honestly does not surprise me in the least.
I don't think anybody would care if it hadn't made a splash by being on Battle.net. This has had a catastrophic effect on token prices. Like they've gone up by 25 to 30%.
So that's the big thing is because it's on Battle.net, you can use the Battle.net money that you earn through WoW tokens in Destiny 2 now.
And it will be on the Battle.net service where you have all your friends. I'm surprised it took Activision this long to realize that Battle.net is effectively a money machine if you put something on there. I was waiting for them to do it with something. And
that's what they were ramping up to do when they decided that they needed to divorce the name Battle.net.
Yeah.
Like, because they wanted it to be marketable outside of, it being the WoW launcher and the StarCraft launcher and the Diablo launcher. But I'm surprised that what I'm surprised at is they managed to net a big fish the first time out.
Honestly, it wouldn't have taken much casting. If they wanted to put Destiny 2 onto the PC, then using the existing MMO launcher is not a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm sort of surprised that they went all in on the word go.
They kind of did, didn't they?
Because normally you see these sort of things launch with it, like there'll be a big launch title and they'll like test the waters with a few things first, like to make sure that everything's gonna work the way they expect and that they can actually get people to pick up the thing. But I guess I don't know, like they were talking about Destiny's going to have like a 20-year life cycle or something stupid like that, like.
Yeah.
That just went out the window, did it? We don't care about Destiny
1
anymore.
Sort of. That's the big criticism I've seen people leveling at Destiny 2 is it's basically Destiny 1 with a fresh coat of paint. So I'm not sure how to compare that because I haven't played Destiny 1.
You say even if you say that, like, it's not Destiny 1 for one simple reason, and that's that Destiny doesn't exist on the PC, does it?
No, it does not.
That's a hefty difference.
That is a very hefty difference.
Because the real player base for multiplayer games is on the PC. Like the console one is very limited. Like it's the same people playing the same games over and over again, pretty much.
You can get people on consoles, but they're not very stable. They're going to leave your game eventually. On PC is where they tend to stick around. You build a solid base that stays.
Yeah, well, the thing is that you can't really upgrade your hardware very easily, and this is the impression I've gotten. I'm not clued in on the tech, but you can't, as a host for a large scale multiplayer game, you can't tinker very much with what your software does and what your hardware does and how they interact with each other once you've got everything in place, because everything has been tailored to a specific piece of hardware, and it's not like a common development platform. I mean, that's been disappearing more and more over time as the hardware that consoles work with has closed in on being more and more like PC hardware. But having something within an existing sort of network framework that everybody knows how to program for, everybody knows how to operate, the netcode is relatively straightforward and very, very thoroughly vetted, like that seems like just a friendlier environment to build a large-scale multiplayer game in, where there are huge numbers of other large-scale multiplayer games to draw inspiration from and work with in order to make sure that your netcode works. Because in the end, it always comes down to netcode with these console games. Like the things like matchmaking and that fall apart because netcode is crap.
Yes, but that being said,
the market for MMOs is on the PC. And Destiny is an MMO, and despite what they keep saying, it is still an MMO.
Yeah, they've been desperately trying to expand the MMO player base to consoles for the longest time. Like the only ones that it had really been that successful are ones that basically merged seamlessly with the PC anyway, like Final Fantasy.
Yeah, where there's been seamless cross-platform, it's been great, and there's been some progress in that front.
To actually launch an MMO long term on the console exclusively, like that just hasn't been very successful. From what I've seen. Can the two versions of Destiny 1 interact with each other
between Xbox and PlayStation?
Yeah,
don't think so.
That doesn't surprise me, but that's a major flaw.
Yeah,
it's much easier as well to make PCs talk to consoles instead of having different consoles talk to each other. So you can unify your player base a lot easier.
Yeah, I don't think that they will though. I think there's a good chance that they won't, simply because of the sheer amount of that I would expect from console FPSs getting exposed to people who can actually shoot straight.
Yeah, without auto aim. So this overall, I say it's a very, very welcome change. It's going to be good for Destiny 2. It's going to be all right for Battle.net. There's people out there who are claiming, oh no, the purity of Battle.net has been soiled by a third-party game. No, shut up.
What purity? Battle, like, what value is there to that purity? Like, what?
Absolutely not.
Let's presume that it exists. What value is there? Like, what special thing does it gain due to being, exclusive to StarCraft and Diablo and WoW? Like, I'm not even going to consider Hearthstone or Heroes of the Storm, because they aren't really meaningful in a network sense.
No.
Like, what are they afraid of soiling? A bad MMO that's killing people literally in real life through monotony. We have a bad League of Legends ripoff. We have a trading card game that's refusing to use its strengths as an online TCG and falling apart because of it. We have, what else do we have? We have an abandoned isometric loot fest that is barely getting any updates. And we have a game that actually makes you a bad player if you play it. Or a bad person.
There you go.
We're going to get hate mail again.
What does Destiny take away?
Nothing. So,
it just runs the risk of adding console kiddies to it.
If Blizz Activision wants to take what was the Battle.net launcher and turn it into another marketplace and another launch pad for their games, all the more power to them.
As long as it doesn't become Uplay.
As long as it doesn't become Uplay.
As far as purity goes, I think that the purity argument is based on the idea of cross-platform play and the PC master race being forced to interact with filthy console plebs. I think is
people need to shut
the angle. But the fact is that it will cause conflict. The aforementioned reeing over the ability of PC players to use a mouse. Like,
this is the instant and is populated almost entirely by children.
Yeah. I think that would be interesting because, there are some people who are very good with a controller. There are not very many of them. Not very many of them at all can hold a candle to a mediocre player using a mouse.
Yeah, there's
not every... Like, as many people as are good with a controller, as many people are as bad as Polygon with a mouse.
That's pretty bad. That is a very, very low bar to set.
How did they even miss that?
Unbelievably low.
The gun has auto-aim by default in Doom. How did they miss that much?
I don't know. They're never going to live that one down, and I don't think we should ever let them. But, bring it on. It's a good change. Although the only downside is of course the upheaval to the Blizzard money market.
Yeah, well, that only affects people like me who depend on gold in order to pay their subscription. I've got reservoirs of gold. Like, I've got a little bit shy of 2 million gold on the server that I currently play on, so I can continue to fund my play thereby.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know that I'd shell out for Destiny 2. Like, maybe if a whole pile of people that I know played it.
If you built up enough of a back stock of WoW money, you could just buy the entire game that way.
Oh, which is actually I already could. Like, let's say that it costs $100. I could probably
probably will.
I could probably still afford it.
No, hang on. Sorry, Blizz Activision, 120.
I mean, the thing is, the question is how much will the price soar before this comes out? Like, do they even have a release date on this thing, or is this still a pie in the sky idea?
I think they're in open beta or something at the moment. Let me just double
Open
check
beta?
this.
That means like it's going to be released next month.
Yeah, it's coming pretty close. Let me just check up a release date on that.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, I can't really think of anyone who's managed to pull off a PC MMO even where it's FPS or like within that sort of range of things. Like, there have been attempts in the past, but I don't think any of them have been like resoundingly successful from what I've heard.
It does not have a release date for Windows yet, but for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, it's coming out September 8th.
Yes. Presumably it will come out, if not simultaneously, then within a very small window.
Have they spoken on the matter of cross-platform?
Page, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, the FAQ kind of does skip over a couple of noticeable things.
But that's like the most important thing.
That is a very big important thing, that one.
That's the most important thing next to does this game actually exist? It's like, can I play with my friends?
Yeah. So that said, this press release for the whole announcement of this thingy does go out of its way to say that this is a one-off thing, that currently no other games are being considered or will be considered to be put on Battle.net.
Well, because they're looking
I
to see
call
if this is going to work or not.
Yeah, I call shenanigans on that. If it's a success, I expect you will see a lot of Activision games coming.
Why did they say that, though? Why did they feel the need to clarify? It seems like a strange thing.
I don't know.
I suppose that the only thing I can think of is that they don't want people to be under the impression that it's going to turn into Steam. But other than that, I don't see why they felt the urge to clarify in such a way.
Yeah, it's a bit odd, isn't it? But honestly, if it's a success and everything works out well, I think they'd be silly not to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they will to some extent. I think they'll probably go easy on it because Blizzard and Activision in general have always had a tendency to cling very closely to the things they know work.
Yes.
And not venture out in any particular amount, which is why their stuff goes stale so quickly, is because they only ever do the same thing and they do it over and over again. And whenever they innovate, it becomes a catastrophe. See Heroes of the Storm. Like, and that's sort of a bit sad because Blizzard used to be known known as a successful innovator. Now they are known for turning everything they touch into crap.
I mean,
their
only success recently has been Overwatch, as far as trying something different from their normal palette goes.
Yeah. So let's move on then. Talking of doing something different, here's something that I'm finding to be a very positive change, in particular with regards to WoW's future. Christy Golden has joined Blizzard's team. For those who don't know, Christy Golden is the rather talented writer who wrote Rise of the Horde, Arthas: Rise of the Lich King, The Shattering, Prelude to the Cataclysm, Thrall, Twilight of the Aspects, War Crimes, and Duratan.
And not Illidan.
And not Illidan, and she has not written anything nearly remotely as terrible as Knack.
I mean, it's still possible we could see Mary Sue Illidan coming up before she gets the reins.
I fully expect that we will. I
expect that is probably Metzen's legacy on the way out the door.
The fact is that the Illidan was to begin with written to be a character to appeal to people who think that Mary Sue's are cool.
Yeah,
and it was.
He's the Chubby character that exists. He's going to make all the 12-year-olds happy. That's what he's there for.
So she's gone out of her way to say that she's allowed to say where she's going to work, but not in what position. But with Metzen gone out the door,
it's got to be lead writer.
She's got to be in, if not lead writer, then in the lore team, definitely.
I hope so. I don't want that garbage that we've been seeing lately to become the trend. Like, Legion is largely incoherent in a lot of ways. Like, it's a fun expansion in some ways. Like, as far as the sort of the focused content, the raids are really good. The Suramar story is the best execution of week over week content that we've seen, especially if you compare it to the Broken Shore. Like, Broken Shore's weekly quests have been awful. Like, the Suramar one, every time a new week rolled around, you get a new piece of story. Like, how is the rebellion going? Are they managing to find a solution to the Withering? Like, it wasn't a complicated story, but it was a story there. Each week in Broken Shore, it's like, on one week it will be like gather 1,000 tokens farmed under the Centenax, and 1 week it'll be like gather 2,500 nether shards by farming under the Centenax. And there's one which is just like do 30 world quests
Under
on
the
the Broken
Centenax.
Shore or something. Well, there aren't usually sometimes there are world quests under the Centenax. You don't have to do it under the Centenax, but probably you will at some point.
Well, the rewards are better for doing it under the Centenax.
Like, this week's one is like, oh no, last week's one was like just kill 100 demons in a place that isn't under the Centenax. It isn't on Broken Shore.
That's not.
This week's it's I think loot 10 random chests that spawn once every like couple hours or so, scattered randomly around the Broken Shore. Of course, everybody is trying to do it. So
Yeah, they're never
basically a lost
anyway.
cause. Yeah, they're
good luck
never
with that.
anywhere. I've gotten like 4 of them or something like that. But that's the quality of quests that we've gotten from Broken Shore.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of writing, Pandaria was kind of silly and fun, but it wasn't really great.
Well, I think that there was some really nice stuff in Pandaria. I think the problem with Pandaria is that number one, nobody wanted it. Nobody was interested in that storyline, and number two, it just didn't fit with anything else. Like, it didn't integrate really.
Yeah.
They forced the thing about Garrosh so that they could do the novelty of Siege of Orgrimmar, but
which is nice, but honestly, the Garrosh story should have ended at the end of Cataclysm.
Well, Garrosh wasn't the bad guy yet then. He was just sort of a grumpy guy. But the bulk of the stuff that happens there, like, nobody actually cares about like the vault of the Mogu or whatever it was. Nobody cares about the Heart of Fear with all the insect dudes in it. Nobody cares about any of that crap. Nobody really cares about the Thunder King. Like, Throne of Thunder was a great tier, but for like raid content, because their raid content is often very, very good. But it was, as far as like storyline goes, nobody gives a toss about that. Come on.
There were really good nuggets of story in there, but by and large, nobody cared. Then you came into Warlords of Draenor, which was just awful.
They're setting new standards for storyline stuff that people don't care about.
Yeah. But from start to finish, the whole story was not only just awful, but completely inconsequential. The only bit of that really matters is, first and foremost, Garrosh dies, which he should have died at the end of Siege of Orgrimmar, if not sooner. And you suddenly have a new Nazul running around. That's it. That's the only impact.
Yeah, it's their writing has just been really, really shabby, and I don't know why it's gotten so shabby. They don't really have a good reason for it.
Yeah. And then you come into Legion, which, honestly, I felt the writing in that game in Legion should have been a lot stronger than it is, especially given the material they had to work with. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what Christy can do, if she can change things up, and hopefully she's not afraid to smack a few heads where it's needed.
I wonder if she's going to voice like all the characters again. Is she going to write like a billion epic speeches for all the female characters and then voice them all?
Frankly, I'm not sure how Metzen did not walk around with a permanent sore throat.
Yeah.
But, so I'm happy for this.
A lot of people die. I would be happy if she took a page out of Wildbow's book and just plopped an Endbringer down and killed all the bunch of characters that Metzen had no clue what he was doing with, and just restarted from somewhere fresh.
That's not good, because saying characters in Metzen had absolutely no idea what he was doing with is, all of them.
Well, the thing is that the reason that Metzen had no idea what to do with the characters was because he let Narc write them.
Yeah.
That was the core problem, was anytime they incorporated something Narc did into the broader storyline, everything ceased making sense.
Yeah. A lot of his writings conflict directly. To the point where they've actually spun off a separate timeline at one point.
The one with Thura and Medan. The two characters nobody ever wants to see hit the game at all, for any reason.
Sorry, I stand correct.
Retconned.
They have been retconned. But 2 separate timelines, I should say, because his version of War of the Ancients spun off a second one as well.
I suppose we can take the Emerald Nightmare one as a third timeline as well, if we want to take it to the extreme.
Maybe? It doesn't make any sense. So actually, probably.
Like, I mean, well, the problem is that he ends up creating all of these.
Oh, there he goes again.
He ends up creating all these. I'll remind him when he gets back.
All of these random disconnections is what he creates.
He creates these plot tumors, right? Like, so we keep having this thing center stage about like the one that sticks out in my mind is that you have Jaina has this sort of companion in ridiculous frothing rage in Ronan's widow, but most players don't know or care about Ronan because Ronan's just that guy who keeps saying that annoying crap every time somebody finishes the Elgalon quest.
Yes, for a guy who's dead, he keeps talking. He hasn't stopped talking yet.
And people don't know that guy's name. They just think of him as sort of an elemental force of annoyance. And even fewer people than know him know his wife. And yet we're supposed to connect emotionally to her grief. Like,
she really hasn't gotten a whole lot of screen time at all up until this point.
Well, no, she's not really important to anything except Nark's writing, which is the same thing with all of his characters. They're not important to anything except Nark's writing. Like if you look at Corielstrasse, the only situations in which Corielstrasse is important is, well, I mean, there really aren't any. He just appears sitting alongside Alex Strasser all the time.
He gives you a quest.
He never really does or says anything. Like, he's not important. He's just not. But Nark kept getting his characters added to the game, and they just end up having to be around, and they look for things for these worthless characters to do.
Corielstrasse actually gets to raise his eyebrows in a cinematic at one point.
Which is probably the most important thing he's ever done.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that they're looking for work for these characters. They're not helpful or useful in any way. And now, if we have a new writer come in who understands about, that you can write character-focused stuff without having to write 15 million characters for them to bounce off of, and you can write a character who is interesting without being more powerful than the entire established canon cast, then maybe we'll get some decent writing for a change. It could happen.
Yeah. Well, Christy Golden has more than demonstrated that she has a very good understanding of the characters and that she knows what they're going for and what they're supposed to be doing based on her other writings.
More importantly, she can use existing characters.
Yes.
We don't need fluff continuing to fill the cast that'll be forgotten about, i.e. Thura. Or Corielstrasse, whatever his name is.
The only convincing writing for Ronan's widow that was ever done was done by Christy Golden in War Crimes, where she contemplates defecting to go and stay with Sylvanas. Like that, that's the only time that you see sort of credible behavior and motivations drawn out of that. Other than that, she was ever for in the past was to be Ronan's hot elf wife.
Basically, yeah. But I'd like to see her, tackle this Jaina problem, because a lot of Jaina's descent into Crazy Town has been completely and utterly random.
Nonsensical.
Like like you said earlier in the show, all that crazy from Rathian, or Varian, not Rathian. Varian had to go somewhere, and it ended up going into Jaina.
Yeah, but I mean, like most players are not going to ever see that scenario. The mana bomb one at Theramore.
Nope.
They're not going to have any idea why this woman is psychotic. It's just another mistake that they made in putting the story together. Like, if she becomes a major sort of... Like, she pointedly disappears from the Legion plot in the pre-event, I think, where she said, no, I'm going to refuse to cooperate because you're talking about letting Horde go to Dalaran, and Dalaran's my city and I don't want you to. And then they just basically pull rank on her and say, well, you're not the queen, so you can't say that. And she takes
democracy, off. You get outvoted. Bye.
And it's an oligarchy, basically. There's like five of them get to decide everything. But she basically vanishes from the plot. But if she shows up as a key, worker of the business going forward, people are not going to know who she is anymore. Like Jaina Proudmoore, one of the most important people in the storyline, has been left to go out to seed because Nark kept trying to create new characters to write about instead of writing about canon ones. And on one hand, that's a good thing because he hasn't poisoned them too badly. And on the other hand, it's left a huge amount of dangling plot threads just loitering around while they killed off all of the crap that he wrote.
Yeah, Thrall, at least his story is more or less finished at this point.
It's not quite finished. He's in sort of like he's in second Crisis of Faith mode.
Yeah.
Because the first Crisis of Faith was when he was trying to split the duties of war chiefing and shamaning, and his wife
solution to that was Garrosh.
Yeah, his solution was Garrosh, and that didn't go well, and he brought an end to that, but that opened a second crisis of faith, which is, well, he lashed out in anger rather than coming to terms with his mistakes, and the elements don't listen to him anymore as a result. Like, that storyline is not resolved.
No.
But it is in a position where they can stick it on the back burner, unlike Jaina. Whereas Jaina is in a state of instability, who could go off at any moment, but they aren't doing anything with it. So
I really hope she doesn't.
She's just brooding.
I hope she just doesn't pop up again out of the blue and say, "I'm going to get in everybody's way now."
The meme
or
is
something like.
the meme is Jaina is a dreadlord. That's the meme.
or something stupid like that. No, I'm actually expecting Varian Wren to show up as a dreadlord because that's Blizzard's standard for writing.
It sounds like something that they might do, right? Like that, and well, I mean, they've done it before in a sense, like in a sort of a parallel way with like Thorum, whatever he was called.
The Bronzebeard King.
No, that's Magni. I'm talking about the Titan Watcher guy in Ulduar.
Oh,
how
right.
He's basically being strung along by Yogg-Saron pretending to be his wife.
Yes, that's right.
Like, if you really wanted to manipulate Anduin, all you had to do was convince him that his father's giving him advice.
Yeah. So
Just need to have a rational character come sit down and play therapist to a few of these people.
Smack a couple of their heads up around a little bit.
Just nice.
Stop it.
Just get some nice elf lady to come down, sit down, have a nice talk with Jaina, and have her calm down, and then have her go talk to Anduin, and then you kill that character to make her not a Mary Sue, and we're all good.
It's like this is not like Naruto. Like, people's personal issues don't get solved by getting punched in the face by Naruto.
Some characters I would actually just like to see them punch in the face on pure principle, but that's and not because they're good characters who have really good motivations or even bad motivations. They're just annoying.
No, we just need a nice elf lady therapist to solve all the problems of that universe. It can all be solved with a nice elf lady therapist.
Or a rolled up newspaper. Just whack him on the head and say, "No, stop it. Danny, you're going crazy. Stop it."
What were we talking about?
I don't know.
Christy Golden was coming into Blizzard.
So that's a good thing. Let's move on. Oh dear. What's next?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Y'all found the news this week. Ball found everything I was going to post, so I didn't bother posting anything.
Yeah, pretty much likewise.
Right, the other one that I had was Scalebound. Now, if anybody remembers, Scalebound was presented with much fanfare by Microsoft at, well, I think it was an E3, and they basically showed it off as basically multiplayer Monster Hunter meets Devil May Cry.
Meets douchebag millennials.
Yeah, and by Devil May Cry, I mean
New Dante.
DMC Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
So good they named it twice.
Dino May Cry.
So this was announced to much fanfare and lots of people were excited, and then they axed it.
Yeah.
For reasons that really weren't very clear, but they axed it.
Honestly,
recently,
the game looked bad.
well, the game, it's not really. I feel like it's not really fair to say that the game looked bad. Like, lay aside your feelings that the protagonist would be a douchebag, because really we don't know if the protagonist is a douchebag. He's just probably a douchebag because he looks like a douchebag. But we don't actually know anything about the game because all we ever saw was that one demonstration of that 4-way boss fight thing,
which was against, might I add, a giant enemy crab.
Yeah, I don't know how cognizant they were of the fact that they were being a meme, but at any rate,
went for massive damage.
That's exactly what they did.
Yes, it's exactly what they did. But I mean, all those games work that way. But at any rate,
yes.
It was cancelled without much explanation. But it's recently come to light that they have extended their trademark on it, which and there are following up on that, there are rumors that has been sort of floating around from supposed insiders at Microsoft that the project has been revived and it's been passed off to another team. So Scalebound, it sounds like, has been revived as a project to make a console exclusive sort of multiplayer brawler boss fighter thingy, and it's been revived under somebody who isn't Platinum.
Yes.
So yeah, that doesn't seem wise to me because the entire rationale behind having Platinum work on it was that they would be able to bring to bear the sort of. Well, I don't know how it fit the time scale actually when they announced that before, whether it was before or after Platinum started working with Nintendo. I don't remember exactly how it all fit together, but the idea was that they could bring the sort of action combat style and sort of their sheer skill at execution from things like Bayonetta into their new IP that they were developing, the dragon slaying type IP. But if you then cut out the people who have skill at that and try and give it to another team,
disaster happens. Is what happens. Is that goes as well.
That's just a cynical way of trading on people's excitement about that IP.
Honestly, looking at Scalebound when they first announced it, it's a premise that just did not ring with me. It's because of douchebaggy super millennials riding around on dragons fighting giant crab. That's what that trailer tells. His name is
Drew.
Yes!
His name is Drew. Can you get any more red flaggy than that for douchebag alert?
Yeah, but the glue that held all that together as maybe something that'll be worth playing in the end is Platinum Games.
No offense to any Drews that are actually listening to the show, but Drew as a protagonist name dressed like that, it cannot be anything but a douchebag.
Yeah. See, if they actually had the premise of super millennials inside dragons, perhaps in the digestive tract, I would play that.
Well, provided it didn't require you to get them out.
No, rescuing them is not an option.
Well, they get out eventually, just not very nice.
Yeah, not very nice. That's just gross. So we'll see. It might end up being good, but from what we saw at that E3 that was just a pre-rendered concept animation, really.
Well, it wasn't pre-rendered, but it was a very, very carefully crafted demo.
Yeah.
This is going to be
the line between a pre-rendered and a gameplay video at E3 these days is non-existent.
Like it was clearly scripted in advance. I wish they would just stop with this conceit of we're actually playing on stage, guys. Except when actually are playing.
No, you're not.
Like, even if you are playing on stage for legit, most people won't believe you.
The only time that recently it was Little Big Planet 3 because they screwed it up. They can't platform a game very well. Apparently, those developers, they're not very good at their own game. But
there's nothing uncommon about that.
Nothing very uncommon about that.
See Celeste on.
But like the gameplay trailers, for example, Assassin's Creed Unity, that was not gameplay at all.
That was so far from being gameplay that I actually felt insulted, genuinely insulted, that they were acting like it was.
Yeah. Scalebound falls into that same category, I think. Because it was just way too choreographed.
Oh, dear.
I don't know. We'll see. It might end up being good. It might end up being complete and utter dreck. So we shall see.
Garbage. We're going to have a lot of fun if this thing gets a new developer, and we're going to talk about how terrible it is and be right when it comes out.
So if we agree,
it'll actually come out and be good.
This is a fine alternative, but I'm just saying right now it's going to be terrible, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking about how terrible it is and then be right.
Yes. But for now, there's probably better games that I can go and play right now, which involve giant enemy crabs and dragons. And also no douchey millennials.
Yeah, that's true. There's also a better console exclusive you need to be playing. You need to go buy it since you have a PS4.
Yes. I know which one you're talking about, and I do have to buy it.
If I get my PhD and everything goes swimmingly, I'll buy a PS4 as soon as I can find a good price. I'll reward myself.
All right. One more bit of news, which is mostly a rumor. I'm just going to throw this out there because it sounds actually rather absurd. The source, of course, being NeoGAF, which says a lot. But
it says a lot in the sense that it doesn't really say very much at all.
Precisely. So there's a new MMO coming out. Apparently, it's gotten developers from things like Cryptic Studios and Blizzard and here, there, and everywhere, based on Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I've not really been able to find. Like, I looked for something that might imply that it actually was. That Cryptic actually was making a Magic the Gathering MMO, but all they've ever confirmed is that they're working on a top secret project, and it's based on a well-known fantasy IP, and that they are excited about it. But of course, they're going to say that. Like, I really haven't been able to find anything that suggests that there's really.
I don't know.
But it's just
Like,
the rumors, like, as far as I can tell, the source of this rumor is that this guy reckons that. Like,
Yeah.
it's not really. I think that this is like it seems like Chinese whispers to me.
It's a
The source
combination
this
of
rumor, I tried to follow it, and it seems like Chinese whispers.
Yeah, the little bit I've been able to follow back is a good chunk of it is this guy thinks that, and there's a nugget of a quote from the head of Wizards of the Coast, Chris Cox, early this year, talking about how cool an MMO based on Magic the Gathering, or at least a video game based on Magic the Gathering, could be.
Well, I mean, but that's how anybody would talk about their IP, wouldn't it? Like,
Yeah.
if you decided you were going to reinvent yourself as an author and wrote a popular sci-fi novel, wouldn't you be enthused about the idea that it might get turned into a really cool game? Like, it doesn't
Despite
really
the fact that
matter.
it's never going to happen.
Well, whatever it is that you create, you're going to say that. That by itself doesn't mean anything. They're reading way too much into it. Like,
I think
when
they are.
I backtracked the sources of these rumors, the most that I could find was a person saying the internet's general consensus is that it's probably Magic the Gathering.
Yeah. I
Which
honestly
means
had
that a
my
bunch of
doubts
people
about it.
discussed what it might be in a forum, and Magic the Gathering was a popular suggestion. Like, it means precisely nothing.
It really doesn't. I can't even imagine how a Magic the Gathering MMO would work without, the card game system in it.
Well, you just use the IP. That's the idea.
You just use the IP,
Like,
but that's it. Like,
Warhammer games don't use the figures.
no,
They don't use
but
the rules.
a planeswalker is basically a summoner.
Yeah, but there are
But-
lots of characters that live within that world, and
Mm.
planeswalkers are not summoners, not anymore.
Well, not anymore.
Like,
They've shifted that goalpost.
many years ago, that was the case. But planeswalkers have been basically devolved into extremely powerful individuals.
Mm.
But they're very, very limited, unless you're, Jace the Mind Sculptor, in which case you have to get banned from every format.
Or Chandra, because Chandra.
Well, Chandra's not banned from any format, I don't think.
No, but her story writing is horrific.
Well, yeah, but that's because she's kind of generic, because she was one of the very first. But there are lots of characters that you can work with, and you can work with, like, newly awakened planeswalker, let's write a story for this guy, because they do it all the time.
Yes, they do.
Like,
For a new
every
plane,
set-
they throw in a new planeswalker.
Yeah, for every set that they release, they will usually invent a new planeswalker if they aren't reviving an old storyline to solve it. Like, it's not uncommon, and you often don't ever see them again. Like, we haven't seen Tamio again. We haven't seen Vrask again. We haven't seen Kiora again. We haven't seen a lot of these. They appear once and then they never appear again. And there's no reason for them to not appear or reason for them to appear. Like, they're just throwaway characters who happen to be planeswalkers. Like, I seriously doubt we'll ever see Domri Rade do anything.
Probably not.
Because he's not that interesting.
Yeah,
Tibble
you've got the
probably
core
not
five, and they seem to be the ones who really do anything.
Well, there are core five, and there are ones that orbit around them. Like, Nicol Bolas isn't one of the core five, but he's arguably the most important because he's the single most powerful individual.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm skeptical. I'm very skeptical.
I think that it is not impossible that it is true, but I think that if they are right by coincidence and not through deduction, because it could be anything. They have no evidence of any sort.
Like, for all we know, they could be dusting off and giving another shot at a Warhammer MMO.
I
wouldn't mind that.
They could, but I don't think that they are.
No, probably not. Hey, bring a Warhammer 40k MMO. Do that. I'd play that.
I think it's impossible to make one without ruining it.
True.
There's the fact is that there's already that one in the works. Not in the works. So there's the one that's like is running at the moment. It's a paid sort of team game thing that is apparently a pile of dreck because it's so unbalanced.
Oh, what was that called now? Not Space Marine. I can't remember at the moment. It's on Steam anyway.
Yeah.
Space Marine was actually kind of fun.
I never finished it. I got up to this part that I just got annoyed at because it seemed like whether I died or not was just luck.
Yeah, and there's some bits of level design were just completely nonsensical.
Like it just ended up being, well, at some point there will be more orcs coming than bullets I can fire out of my gun, so eventually I will die. And I didn't really know how I was supposed to solve that situation. I just got annoyed at it and I stopped
More
playing.
bullets.
Or DACA.
More DACA.
Yeah, but I didn't have more DACA. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And it's not a scarcity game. They were just sending that many orcs, which is, I understand that's how orcs operate. It's sort of their way of doing things, but it just annoyed me.
Yeah, you're also playing an ultramarine, so naturally running away is not an option.
Ultramarines.
More guns. More bullets.
Yeah.
If the Emperor had a text-to-speech device, has completely distorted my perception of 40k now. Like I just imagine Ultramarines as people who every second word they say is honourable battle brother.
Yeah. Oh, hello. Dog making stupid noises. So that must mean it's time to start winding up.
Righto.
The stupid noise has been made.
The dog is demanding attention.
He's nothing if not punctual.
He knows when the show's over. He comes to remind you.
And makes stupid noises. All right.
Okay. We went long this week. I think we're at 2.5 hours.
We really did.
We're at 3 hours.
According to the time now, 2 hours, 40 minutes.
Let's get out of here. My throat's starting to get a bit raw.
Yes, it
Right,
is. And my dog's simply annoying.
Don't know. Write us something.
Write us about the thing and the stuff.
I'm not going to anyway. Y'all don't love us. Okay. Closing comments, go.
I don't know which game I want to go and play next. I want to play a good game, not a terrible one, though. I got to go for Zero Dawn. That's what I got to do.
I have 1,000 JRPGs to play, or at least it feels like it.
Also that.
I think I'm going to go play Angsty British Simulator.
You got to make that a thing now, are you?
I don't know. That's what you called it.
Yeah, the Tomb Raider reboots. Angsty Brit Sim. That's what she does. She goes, she angsts, and then she dies horribly in the woods.
I like those games.
In Tomb Raider, that's what happens?
Pretty much.
That's not really what happens. That's what Fern calls it.
For some reason, I always recall Tomb Raider as being, the new Tomb Raider as being that game where a whole bunch of feminists got upset because they claimed that the noises of her falling off of things were sexualized.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Come up with some new material, you useless bints. Seriously.
I've always liked
wow,
Tomb Raider.
that was offensive. No, it's not really. Let's get out of here before things get really silly.
Yep, we'll see y'all next week. Sayonara, bye-bye.
Versus the World Productions. Scaring normal people on the internet since 2010. www.vtwproductions.com